Good evening. We're going to call the meeting to order. Today is March 15th, 2022. This is the Monroe Township Board of Education meeting. Welcome to all. We are going to first we're going to have our call to order. Our roll call is after. I'm sorry. We're going to stand for our Pledge of Allegiance. Kindly please keep standing after our pledge, and our chorus, led by Ms. Siegel, is going to sing the Star Spangled Banner. Thank you. Pledge allegiance
to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. Our students are so very talented. We have one more song.
We have one more song.
Thank you very much. Our students are so very talented. The concert prior to the meeting, as well as the performance here, is truly inspiring to all, and just such a wonderful showcase of the many talents of our students here in the district. It makes me, as well as I know the entire board, so proud this evening. Thank you so much. Okay. And Mr. Gorski, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Arminio. Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Here.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella. Here. Ms. Fabiano.
Here.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Here.
Mr. Rutsky.
Here.
Ms. Skirby.
Here.
Madam President, you have a quorum present this evening. In accordance with the provisions of the New Jersey Open Public Meetings Law, the Monroe Township Board of Education has caused notice of this meeting to be published in electronic notice provided by having the date, time, and place thereof posted March 11th, 2022 at all schools on the district website at https://www.monroe.k12.nj.us, Home News Tribune, the Cranberry Press, and filed with the clerk of the municipality.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. The next item on our agenda is the approval of minutes. Can I get a motion to approve the Public Board of Education meeting minutes of February 16th, 2022?
So moved.
Ms. Malcolm?
I checked you out.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
Any abstentions? Recusals? Okay. And can I get a motion for the closed session meeting, February 16th, 2022?
Moved. Second.
Okay. Are there any questions or comments on these? No, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any abstentions, recusals? Okay, great. That concludes the approval of the minutes. Our next item on the agenda is our student board members report. We have both of our student board members here. We will start with Ms. Samara Jane. Good evening.
So this month at Applegarth, the Unified Team will be visiting their school on March 22nd, and on March 23rd, they will be holding a Pajama Day fundraiser for the Monroe Police Department's charity ride. Wellness Week for staff and students will also be happening the week of March 21st. Numerous activities have been planned, and they are in the process of designing activities for Disabilities Awareness Month and Autism Awareness Month. March Madness basketball competition for grades 4 and 5 will be held on April 5th and 8th. These students will be competing as a culmination to their basketball unit in phys ed, and Unified Paint Night will be coming up on April 5th. At the middle school on February 23rd, Mr. Ratner and the Monroe Township Middle School Band took a trip to Broadway. On March 6th, Mr. Snyder and the Monroe Township Middle School Band participated in the CGMEA concert. On the 15th of March, the middle school held its fourth Career Cafe with an engineer. This was for sixth graders, and the students were encouraged to ask questions to their guest speaker and learn about the job opportunities in engineering. On March 17th, the core students of the middle school will also be participating in a trip to Rowan University. At Brookside, they have Read Across America Week this month, where they will do a Drop Everything and Read during the first week of March. They also have their Walk to Water fundraiser, which is an ongoing and will culminate with a school-wide walk later this month. Their reasoning is a lack of clean water is critical need to many parts of the world. So they are hoping to give students a chance to empathize with what many children around parts of the world go through, and to show them that a basic human need is not necessarily there for everyone. They are also celebrating Disabilities Awareness Month and Autism Awareness Month with uniquely themed days to celebrate all of the ways that their students are unique. And during the next few weeks, students will engage in activities around the school geared to promoting inclusion and acceptance. At the high school this month, the NJ GPA testing has started for juniors, so all of these seniors, sophomores, and freshmen have had delayed openings all week. Tennis tryouts and track tryouts were held this Monday on the 14th, as well as today after school. The National English Honor Society has been selling cheesecakes to fundraise, so if anyone wants to buy, please let me know. And all of the seniors who ordered their senior apparel have received their items this week.
Great, thank you very much. We'll hear from our other student board member, Mr. Shivank Ladapali.
At Barkley Brook, they're really excited to be presented with a grant from Monroe Education Foundation for their SEL reading pathway. The grant will allow them to create a story walk on their school grounds, similar to the ones found at the Monroe Township Public Library. This program will also reinforce their SEL initiatives by providing students with the opportunity to read as well as reread books focused on their SEL initiatives. Each page will be put on for a different display, which will provide students with the opportunity to incorporate a kinesthetic activity as they read the books. They also have Read Across America during last week in February. They had school-wide spirit days during the week, and the class competed in a Battle of the Books competition. And during the month of February, each grade level listened to the books selected for their grade level, and they competed in a competition where they had to answer questions about each of the individual stories, and the students in each winning class received a new book from their book vending machine. Interesting. In Mill Lake, they celebrated International SEL Day on Friday, March 11th. Their students and staff were invited to wear comfy clothes, completed guided meditations, and the ML/Woodland PTO even donated soothing face masks for their staff. On Friday, March 18th, their students can pay $1 to wear pajamas in collaboration with the Monroe Township Police Department in the annual Unity Tour. At the end of the month, Middle Lake School will also have a week-long celebration in honor of Development Disability Month. Each day, they will bring awareness to different disabilities ranging from visual impairment to autism as a means to bring inclusion and awareness of all spectrums of learners they have at Mill Lake. This will culminate in an autism walk on Friday, April 1st. At Oak Tree, they celebrated Read Across America with different themed days such as Favorite Color Day, Slipper Day, Animal Day, and Pajama Day, plus their reading train in which the students lined in the hallways of Oak Tree reading their favorite book they chose. On March 11th, SEL Day, students listened to a story about cooperation recorded by Ms. Dinsmore and completed corresponding activities. It was also a PJs for Police Day in which $575 was raised to support local law enforcement on their Unity Tour, led by grade 3 teacher Ms. McGarry, who is working with local Ukrainian churches. Oak Tree staff is also collecting much-needed items in order to be shipped to the Ukraine. Jump rope for Heart Kick-Off also starts on April 4th. In Woodland, the library was transformed to Star Books Cafe for Read Across America. The students had a book tasting where the students were able to preview books from various genres as well as writing feedback. And Ms. Cicerelli's 4th grade class had an author visit for Read Aloud Day with Sean Stout, and the entire 5th grade class had a virtual FAQ with Mr. Dan Gutman, who is an American author/writer of primarily children's fiction books. And they also had Plastic Challenge, which basically emphasizes the needs of reducing plastic and increasing recycling. And Woodland School also came fourth in the Eastern region last year for that competition.
Great, thank you very much. Our next item on the agenda are our presentations. We have 2 this evening. The first one gives me great pleasure to introduce our student recognition presentation.
Thank you very much. I see some signals from the back. I want to say thank you. But I'm very loud naturally, so it's very easy to hear me. So welcome, everybody, and I have the absolute pleasure to be with you together in the room in person. I was just commenting to Dr. Lehman that it's my remembrance that exactly 2 years ago, March 13th of 2019, 2020, thank you. I don't want to scare you. We don't need an extra year of that. 2020, that it was a Friday from my recollection, and that was the last time that we were in school, and then from that, the world changed us. And I would like to say that although it may have changed us forever, we are moving back in the direction of being who we are and about celebrating children. So I have the absolute pleasure, and I'm the welcoming, to say congratulations. And before we even get started with the names, I think it's appropriate to take a moment because the recognition is for your child, it is for you, it is for all of us, because I always say success is always a team effort. So a nice round of applause for all of the children this evening, as well as the parents.
So at this time, we're going to begin with Applegarth, and we can see that we already have, hello there, how are you? We already have Ms. Graziano at the podium. So when you hear your name, kindly come forward and you'll receive your certificate, and myself and Ms. Skirby are going to walk to the middle so that we can acknowledge the children. And Ms. Bierman, would you like to join us? Sure. And of course, Dr. Lehman.
Okay, good evening, everyone. We will be announcing and awarding students who were accepted as members of the Central Jersey Music Educators Association. This is a select group of students who were nominated by their teachers to be part of a regional honors band. Congratulations to all the students that are about to be honored, but it's my special pleasure to introduce the Applegarth Elementary Honors Band members. Students, please come up when you hear your name. And Bini Ademulam. Arav Shandarana. Krish Khatri. Umanath Kumar. Fihan Parikh. Go ahead, Umanath. I'll wait a little longer. I think they're having trouble getting through. No? Okay. Sharval Srinivasan. Dia Sundar. Kian Vaishnav. Akhil Venkat. And Arjun Venkatesh. Congratulations to our Applegarth students. And next up, I believe, is Mr. Pepe. Yes, sure. Sure.
Good evening, everyone. I'd like to echo the sentiments, of Ms. Graziano in congratulating our student honorees tonight, our instrumental music staff, and at Brookside, our band director, Ms. Lynn Sporell. At this time, I'd like to introduce our student honorees for the CJMEA. We have Aditi Karthik. We have Advaith Kada. We have Esme Capelli. We have Maya Pai. We have Ishan Patil. and Logan Villar. Thank you very much. At this time, I'd like to introduce Woodland School.
Good evening, everybody. The following Woodland Elementary students are being acknowledged for their participation in the 2022 CJMEA Elementary Honors Band Festival, which took place this past weekend. Out of hundreds of students who were nominated, only about half of them were actually chosen to take part in this event, which comprised of a single rehearsal followed by a concert in the same day, which for elementary students is a monumental achievement. On behalf of the music department, we would also like to thank, of course, Superintendent Mrs. Chandley, Dr. Lehman, and the Monroe Board of Education for all of your support. It's my pleasure to acknowledge the following 4 students from Woodland. Angelia Hadjispastoli, Iman Saidu, Augustine Salazar, and Zachary Schneeweiss. The next presenter are Mr. Yale Snyder and Mr. David Ratner from Monroe Township Middle School.
All right, the teacher and me would like all the 6th graders to move towards the front that have been accepted so we can expedite this rolling along. These students also participated in the Elementary Honor Band Festival that you've already heard so much about, so we'll push it up with Aditi Achari, Aditya Bhagat. We'll just keep the applause running. Celine Chang. Dylan Chung. Arush Devane. Shriyan Gusade. Just Karen Kaler. Charvi Kuntamakala. Snigdha Malakapeti. Anish Maskar. Suchi Oak. Aman Patel. Nikita Pol. Sonit Saxena. Ashlyn Saletti. Rakshan Senthil. Sabrina Singer. Akansha Talapaneni. And Hasini Valori. Thank you all. Congratulations.
Congratulations, guys.
Hasini here? It's my pleasure to introduce our 7th and 8th grade band director, Ms. Gina Vengara.
Good evening, everybody. This month, 11 7th and 8th grade band students were nominated and accepted to partake in the Central Jersey Music Educator Association Middle School Honors Band. Students were nominated based on their character, perseverance, and heartfelt commitment to band. A sincere thanks to Superintendent Mrs. Chanley, Assistant Superintendent Dr. Lehman, Board of Education members, and the Monroe Township Middle School administration for allowing this to all be possible. The first recipient will be Avani Gambirwala. Ashita Gandhi. Bethel Kiki Lana. Ritika Lanka. Ava Liang. Ankit Ravindran. Avika Sanchetti. Veronica Sims. Abhinav Sukla. Edward Testinas. And Caitlin Wong. Last month, over a dozen 7th and 8th grade band students auditioned and were accepted into the CJMEA Region Band, more so than in many years past. An acceptance into Region Band is rare, requiring months of hard work and dedication. We would like to thank Mrs. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, the Board of Ed, and MTMS administration for their support of the arts, which has helped make this all possible. So now we would like to acknowledge Saisha Amaresh. Arya Namana Datta Arya Samajula. Hari Kumar Ganesh. Abhinav Sukla. Harisis Singh. Noel Chong. Vikram Ranganath. Edward Testinas. And Caitlin Wong. Now I would like to introduce Mrs. Nina Schmetterer.
Slight correction. We're going to throw the percussion ensemble in there first. So, Mr. Yale Snyder, come on up.
I'm glad I was close by. Good evening, everyone. And our CJMEA Intermediate, which is the middle school division, percussion ensemble, actually had its concert just a couple days ago. And we had several students audition from throughout the state. And I'm very proud to announce that nearly 50% of this ensemble came from Monroe Township Middle School. So that's very exciting for us. And of course, as we all said, we'd like to thank all of the administration, Mrs. Chanley, Dr. Lehman, the Board of Education, for all of their support of the performing arts. I'm so proud of all of our students here that were accepted into the 2022 CJMEA Intermediate Percussion Ensemble. And we're going to call them up. Freya Breland. Aiden Lynn. Advik Sivakumar. Serena Valentine. Gabrielle Siachi. And last but not least, Pooja Shokla. These are our CJMEA Intermediate Percussion Ensemble. Thank you so much, everyone. It's so good to be back and in person with live music and here. Thank you so much. And now, it was worth the wait, Miss Nita Schmetterer, our choir director for Monroe Township Middle School. Now you're up.
And Miss Lisa Cosentino. Oh, you need this. So just like all the other music teachers who've been up here, we are here to honor today our chorus students who participated just on Sunday at the high school here at their CJMEA Intermediate Regional Choir, and we had a multitude of students between 6th and 8th grade who got in, and we are very proud of them. The first one is Ashita Gandhi. Who was just here and will be back. Joanna Gerges.
Manasvi Hugar.
Pranaya Jeraman. Lashika Kani. Oh, I'm sorry, that was Lasani. Here's Lashika Khanna, thank you. Sorry, I'm reading this off the screen and I am not wearing my glasses, everybody. I'm trying.
Alize Kazmi.
Tanya Kumar. Kiki Lana. Davinya Lohith. Trishti Merchandani. Dia Mulchandani.
Next is Jesslyn Renius.
Ethan Rodriguez. Ivana Samuel. Gabrielle Siachi.
Divya Shri Kumar.
And last but not least, the number one soprano, Sanvi Tati. Next up is Mr. Scott Sidler, who is presenting the Presidential Award.
Congratulations to all of our award winners. I have the pleasure of announcing the Presidential Leadership Award to two outstanding middle school students. This award is for volunteer service. So the two outstanding middle school students, Gadasrita and Saketh Dinta Kurdi. Congratulations. Now I'd like to introduce Mr. Colella for Model UN.
Good evening, everyone. My name is Giuseppe Colella. I'm one of the MTHS assistant principals. I supervise the school's extracurricular activities. Just as a bit of background, here at MTHS we have over 60 extracurricular activities dedicated to helping our students follow their particular interest or passion, whether it be career-based or creative in nature. In some of our activities, MTH clubs participate in academic competitions which pit us against other schools both in and outside of New Jersey. Tonight, I have the privilege of recognizing students belonging to such organizations, Model UN and FBLA. Historically, these two prestigious organizations have had a winning pedigree here at MTHS, which continues to the present day. Let's begin with recognizing the MTHS students who belong to Model UN, which is advised by MTHS Social Studies teacher, Mr. Joseph Romano, who unfortunately could not be here tonight. Model UN, the Model UN program, or MUN, as it's affectionately called here at the high school, is designed to introduce students to the operation and structure of the United Nations while providing them with an opportunity to actively learn about world cultures and debate issues of international importance. Students actively participate in conflict resolution, public speaking, and coalition building, in addition to making new friends and being exposed to new ideas. The program promotes leadership through character development while introducing students to a vast array of international topics. This year was one of our delegation's most successful years. Monroe Township High School was awarded Outstanding Delegation for our overall participation during the January 2022 conference, and many of our delegates earned individual accolades. Those individuals will now be recognized. First, Hetfi Thacker, elected chairperson of the Group of 20 Committee. Next, Ruhi Kulkarni, elected chairperson of the Historical Security Council. Anyuke Patel, elected chair for the National Building Committee and selected to CONA, which stands for Conference of National Affairs, and is the top honor awarded at Model UN conferences. Congratulations. Next, Anya Rana, awarded Outstanding First-Year Delegate in the International Court of Justice. Zain Jabber, awarded Outstanding First-Year Delegate in the Middle East and North African Summit. Yashwant Mupidi, awarded Outstanding First-Year Delegate in the Nation Building Committee. Jason Chin, awarded Premier Diplomat and was also selected to the prestigious CONA. Pranat Kudala, awarded Premier Diplomat for the World Health Organization. And finally, Emily Bai, awarded Outstanding Country. The next group of students we'd like to recognize tonight are members of the MTHS chapter of FBLA, which stands for Future Business Leaders of America. FBLA is advised by MTHS business teacher, Ms. Deanna Dale, who also could not be here tonight. The following students competed in regional competitive event testing on December 15th, 2020 here at MTHS. They placed first overall in their event and advanced to compete at the second level of competition, which just concluded in Atlantic City last week. Those individuals will now be recognized. First, Thanmay Kuvari, chosen as Co-Executive Director of Programs for the FBLA National President's Executive Council. She was also recognized as a first-place team member for business ethics. Congratulations, Thanmay. Next, Nuraini Anshuthagni, chosen as Co-Communications Director for the FBLA National Parliamentarians Executive Council. She was also on that first place team for business ethics. Congratulations. The last member of that first place team for business ethics was Maheen Khan. I'm sorry, they're a little out of order. Next, Siraj Bijou awarded first place for help desk. Siraj. Vanshika Bagnad awarded first place for insurance and risk management. Tharika Matareddy awarded first place for introduction to FBLA. The next three students I'll read were all first place teammates for the Management Information Systems Award. First, Aditya Alawatz. Second, Yash Chanawar. And rounding up that group, Krish Karbanda. Oh, I'm sorry. Next three students were on the first place team for network design. Ishan Bansal. Parth Patel. And Nikhil Shah. Awarded first place for personal finance, Ari Nair. And finally, first place for political science, Jason Chin. Congratulations to all the students, their families, their teachers, and their advisors. Great job, everyone. It's now my pleasure to introduce my colleague and friend, Ms. Terry Weiss. Ms. Weiss is an assistant principal here at MTHS and will be recognizing students who belong to DECA, another MTHS extracurricular group with a winning pedigree in in academic competitions. Have a great evening, everyone.
Good evening. It is my pleasure to be able to recognize the students that have recently won awards for DECA. First are the individual award winners in the Business Finance Series, Prem Johnny. In the Food Marketing Series, Ria Kakar. The next two set of winners competed as a team. So for the Marketing and Management Decision-Making team, Ria Bendaganavali and Samita Kalala. The next team competing in the Travel and Tourism Marketing and Management is Raj Patel and Raj Shah. I'm also proud to be able to recognize students that competed in one of our newest clubs and organizations at MTHS, the Entrepreneurship and Innovation Association. These two students competed in the semifinal round in the Diamond Challenge, an international youth and entrepreneurship competition. They were among only 16 teams chosen worldwide to compete in this event. Please help me in congratulating Eric Wong and Dhruv Shetty. It's now my pleasure to be able to introduce Ms. Maria Nomick and Ms. Jessica Singer to present some of our art students.
All right, good evening. On behalf of the Visual Art Department here at the high school, I am here to present students that have been accepted for the 2022 NAHS Juried Exhibition. The Juried Art Exhibition is exclusively for students who are members of the National Art Honor Society chapters. The Juried has representatives from 6 schools: Burren College of Art, College of Creative Studies, Milwaukee Institute of Art and Design, Minneapolis College of Art and Design, Moore College of Art and Design, and Parsons School of Design. The exhibition received 1,665 entries and only 200 works selected for the NAEA Virtual Gallery. 3 of those students were our very own, and we're here to recognize them tonight. Please help me in congratulating Madison Bell, Niharika Kakanuru, and Sana Kakumanu. And if you haven't already done so, their artwork is on display tonight over on this column. So before you leave, please take a look and check it out. And I would like to welcome back to this podium Mr. Yale Snyder.
Hello again. Our honors percussion ensemble class at Monroe Township High School, which is directed by myself and Mr. Marty Griffin, were accepted into the NJMEA State Conference, which happened a few weeks ago in Atlantic City at the Convention Center. The NJMEA State Conference is actually a professional development conference for music educators from throughout the state, and performing groups from all different schools send in a tape to apply to perform for many of the teachers and professional musicians who are in attendance at the conference. So the honors percussion class, we submitted a tape and we were accepted to play a concert on Friday afternoon, February 25th. And we were lucky not only to be able to be accepted to perform for so many prominent educators in the state, but we were also able to share one concert in an hour with William Patterson University and their percussion ensemble. So it worked out really well, where our students performed and the college students were able to watch our high school students. Many of them are music education majors. And then in turn, we were able to watch the college students perform. So it was a great collaboration with William Patterson and a lot of fun. And we're very proud of the students for getting accepted to such a prestigious conference. So we'd like to call each one of our honors percussionists up to receive their certificate. First is Rayon Bora. Eric Crowley. Megan D'Souza. Amar Dillon. Jaden Liu. Preston Mazigla. Arav Narwal. Rebecca Phillip. Michael Brewster. Marcelo Sabat. Tanvi Shah. And last but not least, Sai Takale. Thank you very much. This is our Monroe Township High School Honors Percussion Ensemble. left too soon. Our next presenter will be our high school band director at Monroe Township High School, Mr. Marty Griffin.
Thanks. Good evening, everybody. We are recognizing 7 students who auditioned for and performed with either the Region 2 band or percussion ensemble and or orchestra. There's a lot of crisscrossing there, so we will recognize all 7 of them right now. Eric Crowley, who I don't think is here, but we'll give it up for him anyway. Joshua Fabricant. Jaden Liu. Dominic Minicucci. Michael Prooster. Chloe Ramirez. Marcelo Sabat. He's a popular guy. And we had one who was chosen for Region 2 band and also New Jersey All-State band, Elizabeth Toda. Thank you. And I'm turning things over to our high school choral director, Mrs. Ariel Siegel.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Mrs. Siegel, the choral director here at Monroe Township High School, and I will be presenting 2 awards. The first award will be recognizing the wonderfully talented 30 students who were accepted into the high school CJMEA choir ensembles, the treble and mixed chorus, auditioning with over 40 different high schools across our region. So without further ado, if you hear your name as they are making their way over here, come on up to grab your award. We have Navya Anush, Surabhi Ashok, Christina Buserith, come on up. Rebecca Calderon. Anika Chakuri. Kennedy Christensen. Flory Deepak. Pranisha Gorty. Kushi Honda. Mira James. Jacob Jerusowitz. Emmanuel Joy. Gurjap Kohli. Srinidhi Kunde. Orvi Moulet. Inia Natarajan. Awesome. Marcus Penna. Philip Regalato. Awesome. Brianna Siachi. The next one we don't have one, so we'll get a copy. Yeah. Yes. Sanvi Sringari. Tanvi Sivakumar. Dia Soda. Aditi Sriganesh. Shania Tiwari. Didi Udam. Akshar Vedantham. Jordan Visaki. And Rachel Rodriguez. We also have 12 students in their choral studies that have been recognized for participating in the NJMEA All-State Ensembles. This is comprised of students among the entire state of New Jersey, a very, very rigorous audition that they participated in virtually and were accepted. So these are the following 12 students that are accepted into All-State Chorus. We have Rebecca Calderon. Kennedy Christensen. Flory Deepak. Kushi Honda. Rachel Rodriguez. Ria Singh. Mira James. Orvi Moulet. Philip Regalato. Brianna Siachi. Akshar Vedantham. And Jordan Vasaki. Thank you very much. Next up is Miss Gauri Shankar that will present robotics awards next this evening. Thank you very much.
Good evening, everybody. My name is Vanita Gauri Shankar, and I'm the Teacher of Engineering and Robotics Club Advisor at the Monroe Township High School. I'm very privileged today to introduce the Monroe Township High School Robotics Competition Team. The team competed in 2 regional VEX robotics competitions called Tipping Point. They made it to the state championships, where 50 of the top 106 teams from New Jersey qualified to compete. It gives me great pleasure to welcome the robotics competition team along with the competition robot. We have Aaron Agacoli, Aditya Alawat, Eric Avezbikeyev, I'm not sure if I'm saying it right, sorry. Mridhan Balaji, Anshul Chandalia, Krish Karbanda, Yashwant Mupidi, Pranav Nair, Vishal Sendal Kumar, Anand Suryanarayanan, and Surut Tunga. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Let's have another round of applause for our students. And also, let's give our staff who are here this evening, who helped make all of this happen, A round of applause. Thank you so much for all that you do for our students. Okay, our next item on our agenda is our presentation and public hearing of the preliminary 2022-2023 school budget. Mr. Gorski? Sure.
Ms. Shanley, you're going to start, right?
Okay. So, just let me take their picture. Today is our preliminary budget presentation. Myself, along with Mr. Gorski and Dr. Lehman, will be presenting. For purposes of being courteous and not having our back to you, we're going to remain up here so that we can look at you as we present. Last time we tried to be out there and we had our backs to you. Also, for your access, there are copies that you could follow along if you're unable to see the screen. So at this time, we're going to begin. I'd like to first acknowledge the members of the Board of Education, Ms. Arminio, Ms. Belko, Ms. Bierman, Ms. Bora, Mr. Chiarello, Ms. Fabiano, Mr. Nikotinsky, Ms. Ratner, Ms. Skirby, and Mr. Rutsky. I think it's very important to acknowledge how important their input is as far as support, and that is where we are able to be successful. Specifically, we have our finance committee. And as you can see, our finance committee is comprised of Ms. Bierman as the chairperson, Mr. Chiarello as the vice chairperson, Ms. Belko, Ms. Nikotinsky, and Ms. Skirby as the ex officio as board president. It's very important that in any type of situation, when you're looking towards a goal, you have a vision statement. The Monroe Township Board of Education commits itself to all children by preparing them to reach their full potential and to function in a global society through a permanent education. The reason why I take the time to read that to you, although it is available to you, is because that is the goal when we put together any type of program, whether it be financial or curricular. It is very important that we, once again, do everything with children in mind. Accordingly, our mission statement, Monroe Public Schools, in collaboration with the members of the community, shall ensure that all children receive an exemplary education by well-trained, committed staff in a safe and orderly environment. The mission statement goes hand in hand with the vision statement. It really tells you who we are as a community. The executive summary. The Monroe Township School budget for the 2022-2023 school year was developed within specific parameters set forth by the board's philosophy directive. To prepare a comprehensive budget within very tight revenue constraints, meeting the needs of 109 projected additional students and 1,500 current unhoused students. The budget has been professionally constructed to afford every student an opportunity for an exemplary education by well-trained, committed staff in a safe and secure environment. Opportunity is made available through a comprehensive curriculum which offers diverse course offerings and co-curricular clubs and activities. We believe that our proposed budget continues to become more efficient, as evidenced by a successful county budget efficiency review, whereas Monroe was exemplified for many best financial practices. Key budgetary considerations. These are the areas in which we must focus all of our attention when creating a budget: aging facilities, increased enrollment, New Jersey student learning standards, student-teacher ratio, as well as the tax impact on community. Budget creation timeline. Establishment of a budget philosophy. Enrollment patterns and projections. Review of staffing needs. Budget development. Budget defense rounds. Governor's budget address. Award of state aid. Adoption of a tentative budget, and public hearing. At this time, I'm going to ask Dr. Lehman to continue the presentation. Thank you very much for your attention.
So within this budget, we were able to meet the needs of our personnel, our instructional resources, and our transportation projections. This year, we're including 19 instructional and support staff. Those positions are inclusive of in-class resource and resource room teachers, self-contained teachers, paraprofessionals to support opening the classrooms that go in conjunction with the self-contained teachers, bus drivers, we have a nurse, a Spanish teacher, custodian. So we're looking at our growth needs and anticipating what they are, and we're fortunate to be able to include what we anticipate to be adequate within the budget. In terms of instructional resources, we are adopting some textbooks. We have a yearly a textbook revision cycle, and we can meet our needs and maintain the schedule with all of our projections this year. Technology, as we all know, there is a kind of recycling process that goes along with that. Included in there are some programs and services as well, so we can certainly meet those needs this year within this budget. Transportation-wise, we have 6 54-passenger buses and 2 20-passenger vans. Those are required to update our fleet, so as we age out vehicles, we replace them with new vehicles. Again, it's something that we can, we're fortunate and we're able to budget within this budget. In terms of curriculum and instruction, we, like I spoke on before, we have a textbook adoption cycle. Included in that, we have our K-5 math adoption. That's a huge process this year. That's, if you think of it in terms of, that's about 1/3 of our students are getting, it's time to revise their textbook. So that's a big piece. We have an 8th grade social studies textbook adoption that we're scheduled for. We also have pre-calculus textbooks, app development textbooks. Again, we can meet those needs within this budget. Curriculum writing and mapping. So we're ongoing. We are up to date with 2020 standards, but we continue to revise and edit and update documents. We have some that we need to revisit and update, and we have approximately 20 to 25 curriculum documents that we'll be taking a look at this summer and updating. And again, over the course of next year, the end of this year, summer, in the fall, you'll see us kind of present those in the curriculum committee. Multi-tier systems of support. That's a variety of support systems that we have in place to aid students that may be struggling, and it could be coming out of the pandemic, but it's a normal process, a standard process we have in place to support learners. And it's actually a step in the special education process. Before you get to classification, we do interventions in the classroom, and this budget allows us to maintain those, whether they're basic skills services, reading specialist services, and things like that. In-school and after-school support for students. Again, we saw a lot of the co-curricular activities presented today and on all of our academic achievements. We can maintain what we have. We're proud to be able to budget that this year. I spoke to textbook adoptions and replacements. Running records, NWA mapped, so that's assessment. Those are examples of assessment tools we utilize. Again, NWA map in particular is something we budget for. It's a online assessment tool that we use. It's similar to a benchmarking tool. We do it 2 to 3 times a year, and we've been doing it for many years now. We did it through COVID, and it's something that we are able to monitor our students' progress, and we were able to keep an eye on their growth as we went through COVID with this tool. And I think we're in a really good place, and this NWA map is a tool that we can use to prove that we are in a good place. Whole child and SEL, within this budget, we are able to maintain our focus on social emotional learning needs of our students, continue moving forward with supporting them, again, coming out of the pandemic, but before the pandemic, we had initiatives surrounded by social emotional learning activities. PD is included in here, our AVID program at the high school. In middle school, we've expanded it to an elementary school, and it's something, again, we're looking at continuing to grow in all the schools. So, Mr. Gorski, you're up.
Thank you, Dr. Lehman. Other items that are included in this budget of capital improvement nature is a complete replacement of the HVAC system at the Monroe Township Middle School and the Performing Arts Center. Those who have been watching the Board of Ed for a couple of years remember a mold issue in the middle school where this unit went down a few years ago, and this replacement will safeguard that beautiful Performing Arts Center and prevent any issues like that from occurring again. It's way beyond its useful life. The cost is $1,680,000. Also at the middle school, there's some stopgap interior renovations of the Home Economics Lab 141 to create additional special needs classrooms. That's approximately $150,000. And at the Monroe Township High School, stopgap interior renovations of the Graphic Arts Room G156 to create 2 gen ed classrooms. Cost for that is $50,000. Anything that's on this schedule that is considered equipment will be lease purchased over 5 years so that it fits within the cap. Where does the money come from? We've provided a pie chart, and unfortunately, the dark blue local tax color is what your eyes focus on. 83% of this budget comes from the local tax levy. That's unusual, and it is burdensome to the taxpayers. We certainly hear that. The 83% is down from years where it was as high as 88. So we're making progress there under S2. We'll talk more about that later, where we're getting more state aid on a pathway to full funding, but it's still not satisfactory in my opinion. Fund balance is something that administration can control. That is how we manage the budget. And the greater the excess surplus, the more it recycles over to a future budget with the intent of reducing the tax levy. Tuition from our Jamesburg community is 2.9% of the budget. Transportation fees, miscellaneous revenue, extraordinary aid, state aid is just about 7%, and federal aid is unfortunately only 1% of the total budget. And the next slide is how the general fund tax levy is calculated. Basically, it looks at last year's, the 21-22 general fund tax levy, and increases it by 2%. That is an increase in tax revenues for the 22-23 budget of $2,204,470. The district has no remaining bank cap, and this is the maximum spending authority that can come through increasing taxes. Key factors on Monroe state aid. There are 2 types of state aid. Equalization aid is the main type that's designed to support a district's adequacy budget. That's most of the programs and items that you're familiar with. Monroe has not received any equalization aid since we've been tracking this. Next is categorical aid, and as it sounds, that's different categories of aid that districts qualify for based on students at risk and low income, how efficient your transportation fleet operates. Monroe's, by the way, is #1 in the county and among the highest in the state, and that's why you'll see in a moment when we get to the state aid printout, you'll see a large material number of state aid in the form of transportation aid. That's a reward for running an efficient fleet. General fund state aid is only approximately 7% of total revenue. That's one of the lowest state aid per pupil ratios in the county. Next slide shows a comparison of general fund state aid. Again, equalization aid is 0. Special education aid was $5,017,004 last year. Security aid was $103,000 last year. Transportation aid, $2.7. With the exception of special education aid, which is where the S2 advances were placed by default, the other numbers have remained the same. State aid in the general fund increased $1.7 million, or a 22% increase over last year. That sounds more impressive than it really is when you put it all together. Next is the dollars and cents section. I would like to draw your attention to Schedule A, and that shows a 2-year comparison of all the revenue types. In the top section under fund balance, you could see that the administration was able to grow excess surplus, plus we are recommending to the Board of Education tonight to reduce the restricted fund balance from the 4% COVID mandate back to the historical 2% number and appropriate the difference to the budget. That's approximately $1.6 million of additional funds. You'll notice the debt service fund balance. And you may have a question, how do you generate $478,000 of surplus in the debt service fund? The answer to that is about 2 years ago, we had a bond refunding, and this was additional savings that accumulated in the fund post-closing that by statute has to be applied against the tax levy. So this combines with the general fund tax levy, and this is a handsome contribution to suppressing taxes because of the gains that we had in the refunding a couple of years ago. And then there's no more to come from that initiative. Although every year, our debt service obligation due to the refunding is decreased by about $400,000 every year. Transfers from other funds. We're looking under the cushions and finding money wherever we can to utilize it in the most productive manner. We had an iPad insurance fund that started years ago. You've heard some deliberations about that. We're recommending the closeout of that fund and a transfer of $325,000 to the general fund. The unemployment fund is one that the board actually made a transfer to about 15 years ago because the fund was running a little bit short. The board put a couple $100,000 into there. It has been accumulating a surplus, and as such, we recommend to the board to transfer $100,000 back into the general fund from the previous transfer years ago. Falcon Care and ECE, we are budgeting $200,000 of projected income in that fund to be transferred over to the general fund for unrestricted purposes. This fund normally earns about $600,000 a year in net income and has earned over $2.5 million of retained earnings since inception. During COVID, the program and the schools were closed, and there was a complete impairment of revenue, although the expenses continued because the district did not lay off any staff. We are anticipating a roadway to recovery and $200,000 conservatively of profit for the 22-23 school year. Local taxes, we talked about the cap, that's $112 million. The debt service fund is a mandatory obligation because of the previously passed bond referenda. This covers the principal and interest less the surplus for the next year's obligations. Other revenue consists of tuition, transportation fees, advertising, miscellaneous revenue. You'll see decreases there because we are running out of corpus to earn interest on, and interest rates are at all-time lows. However, the Jamesburg the Board of Education has offered to increase the number of pupils and the tuition rate beyond what is required by the settlement agreement between the two school districts, and they're increasing their tuition to Monroe about $85,000 for next year with the intent to add more resources to pay off that obligation even faster. State aid. All types of state aid total $10 million. What's included in here beyond the general fund is the debt service state aid, Medicaid reimbursement, extraordinary aid where we, by application, apply for reimbursement of some of our costs for out-of-district students and related services, and other non-public aid that we pass over to non-public schools. In the federal aid, you'll see decreases compared to last year as well because there's a lot of COVID relief that came in 21-22 that, according to the budget guidelines, you can't budget for in 22-23. So total revenues for all funds and sources is increasing $4.1 million at 2.93%. The next slide is a comparison of state aid going back to the 8-9 school year. And it's noteworthy to see all of the years in detail that's in here. You could see we're on a pathway to full funding. We've made increases over the last few years. That money is much needed, but quite frankly, it's unsatisfactory, and the Board of Education is looking at opportunities and initiatives to put pressure on the legislators with the new task force that's being in place to seek additional state aid. But the net increase from last year is still a much welcome $1.7 million. Now we're going to talk about budget appropriations, which is spending. And as this slide demonstrates, spending is predominantly driven by student enrollment. And the last ASSA student count was the 6,853 students in the 21-22 school year. That was October 15th, 21. We're projecting from the most recent Ross Haber report, 6,962, which is a 109 student increase. Where does the money go? The gold and the orange sections of this chart show appropriations directly related to instruction, related services, tuition, and most of the health benefits relate to instructional teaching staff. So when you combine those categories, you're 65, 70% direct in the classroom. The other categories are transportation, 5%, and you can see the rest of them there. Benefits is a large number, a large piece of the pie at 21.79%. The appropriations detail is the pages that's labeled C, and this year is a little bit of an anomaly because you're comparing our projections for a, quote, normal school year of operations without impairments because of COVID enclosures and hybrid schedules to a year that contained all of those items. So you're going to see some areas like home instruction, for example, that look like the spending for next year is falling off a cliff, and it's rightfully so. Also included in there is about 3.5% for staff salary increases and a 5% increase in health benefit costs. Our claims came back unattractive for the last 2 months. The loss ratio led to projections that started off at 8.5, and we were able to negotiate them down to 5 without any cuts in benefits or any changes in the carrier. And the next page is cost savings from shared services. Administration works very hard to share costs with anybody who's willing to share with us, including other school districts where we share transportation routes called jointures. We have a couple beautiful examples of shared service agreements with the township. Ms. Arminio last year recommended to the board a shared service agreement for the restoration of the football turf field and the track field, and that was approximately $1.6 million that the district would have had to go alone, but because of that hard work, which paid off, the township is paying for the full restoration. And quite frankly, it's unlikely that that would have fit in this budget had it not been for that shared service agreement because of its size. And everything from recycling to transportation to purchasing, you can see all the categories here that we have more items here of shared services and savings than any other school district. This is part of the user-friendly budget that's on the website, and you could look at this and you can compare to see what you find in other school districts. Ours goes way beyond just in consortiums for insurance. What factors influence the tax rate? Because that's where this whole presentation comes to a climax. Number one, it's state aid. And again, this district has been underserved in this category, and that puts a burden on the tax rate because what the state of New Jersey does not provide through fair funding to meet our adequacy budget, it has to be picked up by the local taxpayers. Fund balance is applied is one area, again, where administration can make contributions by efficient spending and budget adjustments during the year. And finally, ratables are a big variable in the calculation of the tax rate. Last year, ratables grew $244 million. That was an incredible growth year. There was 3% growth in ratables. For 22-23, it dropped to $143,754,000, and that's a 1.77% increase. Still a very handsome number, and you'll see how that plays out in the consequence to the average assessed home shortly. And this is a very attractive slide that you can't overspeak to. You know, 12 years ago, we presented a budget that was a 21.5-cent increase in taxes. It was about $400 on the average assessed home, if I remember correctly. It included a second question for full-day kindergarten, which failed. Both the kindergarten question and the budget failed because there was a vote back then, and the increase in taxes was just very strong. As of recent, because of ratable growth, because of the cap on the budget, because of efficient spending, because of excess surplus that comes around, the 2020 school year was a 2-cent increase. The 21 year was a 2.6 cent increase, still very attractive, in my opinion. Last year, the taxes dropped 1.6 cents as a school tax decrease. And for 22-23, it is basically flat or a 0.25% decrease. For the average assessed home, for 22-23, that is a $9.08 decrease in the school tax rate for an average assessed home at $331,952. That number is provided by the municipality, as are the ratables. And coming next, I would like to read a recommendation for a resolution to the Board of Education. Followed by that, it's anticipated that the board will deliberate on the preliminary budget. Then we would welcome the public to provide your comments during public forum, and then the board members will take a vote on this important resolution. So, be it resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education that the 2022-23 tentative general fund budget be adopted in the amount of $134,803,478, and a tentative general fund local tax levy in the amount of $112,427,989, and a tentative special revenue fund in the amount of $1,336,653, and a tentative debt service budget in the amount of $10,630,867, and the tentative debt service local tax levy in the amount of $9,909,715, whereby the tentative 22-23 budget totals $146,770,998. And be it further resolved by the Monroe Township Board of Education to transfer $2,330,570 from unassigned fund balance to reserved excess surplus designated for future years' expenditures, thus reducing the 4% of the 2021 general fund expenditure requirement to its traditional 2% level. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has been notified of state aid amounts, and whereas such state aid amounts are, for the 22-23 budget, the categorical special education aid is $6,744,811. For the 22-23 categorical security aid is $103,764. And the 22-23 categorical transportation aid is $2,753,019. And the 22-23 debt service aid is $242,917. And whereas the Monroe Township Board of Education has estimated a state aid amount pursuant to application, and for the 22-23, the estimated extraordinary aid amount is $397,484. And whereas policy number 6471 and NJ Administrative Code 6A 23A 7.3 provides that the Board of Education shall establish in the annual school budget a maximum expenditure amount that may be allotted for travel and expense reimbursement for the 22-23 school year. Now therefore be it resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education hereby establishes the school district maximum travel budget for the 22-23 school year at the tentative sum of $165,500. And be it further resolved that the school business administrator shall track and record these costs to ensure the maximum amount is not exceeded. And be it further resolved that the Monroe Township Board of Education authorizes the transfer of $325,000 from the general fund iPad balance -iPad insurance fund to provide revenues for the lease obligation refresh high school instructional devices. And be it further resolved that the members of the Monroe Township Board of Education authorize and approve a withdrawal from the fund balance for unemployment claims in the amount of $100,000. And be it further resolved that the board transfer $300,000 of anticipated, beg your pardon, Falcon Care and, let me read that sentence again, I beg your pardon. Be it further resolved that the board transfer $200,000 of anticipated retained earnings from the proprietary Falcon Care Fund as a revenue source in the 22-23 general fund budget. And whereas due to the consistent student enrollment growth, facility needs, and other priorities set forth in the board's budget philosophy resolution, the board is budgeting to maximum spending authority, also known as CAP. Now therefore let it be resolved that the superintendent of schools and the business administrator board secretary filed the required documents with the Executive County Superintendent.
So moved. Second.
Does anybody have any questions for Mr. Gorski? Ms. Belcom?
My first question, I have two questions.
Okay.
Sorry, thank you. So my first question is, I see in the top section here, instructional trailer lease. Do we know where that instructional trailer is going? Because it's a new budgeted item, and it says it's a 100% increase for this year's budget.
You look at Schedule C.
Schedule C, excuse me, I'm very sorry. It's Schedule C, first page. Helps to tell you where I'm at.
What category is it under?
It's the top under regular programs instruction. It is the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7th item down.
I see it.
There was no budgeted item, budget line item for this in 2021, 22, but there is for 22, 23.
Anybody order a trailer?
Yes, there is budgeted appropriations here for the bank of trailers that exists at the middle school, as well as some funds in case there is a anticipation for any additional trailers to take it to the 130,104.
The question is, why is it a zero in the 21-22 budget?
Because the 21-22 appropriation for instructional trailer lease is included in the 11-190-100-500 account, which is other purchase services for instruction.
Thank you. And you had a second question?
Yes, I did have a second question, and it just has to do with the acronym for, it's the Schedule C, special education instruction. It's under all the autism information. It starts with H.I. instructional teacher salaries. I was just curious as to, we budgeted for this $192,841 in 21-22, and we're budgeting now for $96,090. So I'm just wondering, is there a less of a need for this type of instruction? What does the HI mean? I guess maybe that would help me understand what this is.
Madam?
Yes.
HI, forgive me for the acronym, stands for home instruction, and
Thank
that's
you.
one of the
Now
items
I
that I
get it.
mentioned before.
Now I have no more further questions. Thank you.
Mrs. Ratner, did you have a question?
Yes. So my first question is under Schedule C, under debt service, which is on the last page, I believe. It looks like the interest went down, but the principal amount has gone up about $630,000. Is that principal that is owed on the debt? And I guess, is there a reason that that's going up even though the interest rate is going down?
Yes, Madam,
Yes.
thank you for that question. The answer is this can be compared very similarly to a home mortgage.
Right.
As the home mortgage goes into the latter years of service, the interest obligation falls and the principal that's being repaid every year increases.
Okay.
And that's being shown here. Keep in mind, this debt service budget is just for the amount of debt service needed for the 22-23 interest and principal on bonds that are already issued, and most of which have already been refunded at lower interest rates.
Okay, so it's what we're paying down, not what we owe.
Correct.
Okay.
It's not the liability, it's just the debt service that's due next year.
Okay. My second question is regarding, I guess, instructional benefits, because obviously that's a very huge piece of the pie. And with every year, benefits are increasing both to the district, to the employees. Has there been any discussion in regards to increasing the opt-out allowance if there be interest? Because I don't know what the cost is per employee in regards to health benefits, but I know it's up there. It's at least $15,000, $20,000, depending on what they're offering. So that if the opt-out from Chapter 78 was increased, would there be more interest in employees not taking advantage of the benefits and saving money there?
Madam, I have a question about that. With all due respect, is that something that Ms. Ratner can ask because of her conflict in terms of, like, she would not be able to be negotiating on salaries and benefits? due to the conflict. So I don't know if it's an appropriate question that can be answered. I don't.
Okay, yeah, it was just more if it had been approached, if it's even a possibility. Obviously, if it's, if I can't ask it, I won't.
Madam,
Yes, Mr.
just
Gorski.
generally answering that question without touching on anything that goes to negotiations,
Right.
because that's where
Okay,
this
that's fine.
this
I just
item
wanted
would
to be
be,
clear about conflicted board
we
members.
appreciate the concern.
Thank you, Michelle.
This is a negotiable item. Any increase in the stipend to opt out of health insurance would come from the negotiating committee and have to be approved by the labor units. But I could tell you, looking forward to next year, we are considering some self-funded options for health insurance and some other options. Unfortunately, or fortunately, depending on how you look at it, the demographics of staff are very tenured. On the top, I believe half of the MTEA is on the top step of the guide, and that makes self-funding somewhat of a risky consideration. But we are looking at everything. This was a very difficult and challenging year for health insurance negotiations because the last 2 years of claims and loss ratios were bad. And even though some of that you could blame on COVID, we have large populations of high claims individuals, and that makes us somewhat riskier to insure, thus warranting the higher premiums. So $8.5 million insurance proposal on almost a $30 million account is extraordinary, and that puts an incredible burden on the budget. We were fortunate to get that down to 5. It was not easy. And that saved about $1 million in that account. But still, health benefits went up about $1.5 million, which is eating up a lot of that growth.
Okay, and then I just had one last quick question. Regarding state funding, I know that we get no equalization aid from the state. I know a lot of that's based on district factor grouping amongst other things. When they're calculating that, are we ever taking, the district factor grouping from Jamesburg for grades 9 to 12 into that, or because they're paying tuition, is it completely separate based for state aid purposes?
Your expectation that it's separate is accurate. The Jamesburg variables do not come into that calculation. It's based on Monroe's property wealth and income levels that go into what's called the local fair share calculation. It's an item that's disclosed in a schedule in the state aid notice that will be posted to the website, and you could see how the state calculates that. Basically, if you're over adequacy, which Monroe is, and you have a greater calculation for your local fair share than the adequacy budget, then you are not able to be entitled to equalization aid.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yeah, under water and sewage, the $385,000 that we're budgeting, does that get paid to the township?
Where is that, Mr.
Under plant operations and maintenance?
Schedule C?
Yes, yeah, I'm sorry, water and sewage, Schedule C.
Oh, yeah.
I believe the water gets paid to the Monroe Township Municipal Authority. Yes.
And the 10% rise there would be normal?
Yeah.
It's based on a look back at how much we spent last year, a projection of what it may be when we're in normal operations and more water is being consumed. There is an estimate used there. Yes, and that made this budget very difficult across the board because you're looking back at a year that was impaired and you're trying to project off of there, and it was very difficult. A lot of variables, a lot of contributions from different departments was utilized, and ultimately we came to consensus what we feel is fair.
Yes, Ms. Bierman?
2 questions. One is concerning.
Can you move the face of the mic? Yep, so understanding the special education aid and how it gets applied into the general fund. So if all of our increase in aid was categorical in special education, the 1.7 million, I can see that 4% bump in the special education instruction category, accounting for 620,000 approximately of those dollars. Is that money intended or compelled to be utilized for special education, or is it spread throughout the general budget?
It is spread throughout, it is not restricted, but to help identify categories from Schedule C, you will see that the blue items, as opposed to the black, are what we deem to be special education, strictly. And the purple items are a blend where we were unable to ascertain a percentage one way or another, so we categorized it as a hybrid.
Can you define
Schedule
where
we
those colors
received.
are? Because
We
we have a
didn't get
black
it
and white
colored.
paper here.
I beg your pardon, it's on Exhibit C. If you check the email that I sent out before, you'll have better graphics.
Great.
Sorry that the handouts didn't have that, but we're restricted on color copies. But blue is those that are directly attributable to special ed, black is regular programs, and purple is a hybrid of regular and special education where a split can't be performed.
And my second question would be concerning the ECE number. So prior to COVID, we were in more that $600,000 range. You said it was conservative at $200,000 to put in this budget as a revenue source. That seems super conservative. I haven't seen any real details about the enrollment in the program or how down it is. We had a little bit of enthusiasm from the director at the finance meeting that things were kind of approaching. So I was just wondering if you think that's super, super conservative and you really can expect to get closer to 400,000 or 500,000. How, like, how long will it take us to get back to those pre-COVID numbers, do we think?
It's an excellent question that unfortunately I don't have a definitive answer to, but speaking with Jeannie, who is director of Falcon Care, and some colleagues, initially we had budgeted for 300,000, which was the error that I read in the resolution, correcting it to 200. We reduced 100,000 out of conservatism because it would be better to undershoot and have the excess be an extra amount that goes to excess surplus, rather than to be looking for funding if it falls short.
But is the program really right now at 50% of what it was pre-COVID?
I believe the numbers were 35% and they were growing. So it's getting there. We expect a normal year next year, God willing. And we will give updates throughout the year, at the appropriate committees of how we're doing. Ms. Corello has a lot of enthusiasm in the program, as you said, and she has a lot of new ideas. You'll see a lot of new signage out front. Dr. Lehman has done a fantastic job looking at the curriculum and the offerings and the technology that's used in the program. And we're very pleased and proud of the program, and hopefully the financial results will reward us for that.
Thank you.
Ms. Arminio?
Yes, I have a couple questions. Just for clarification's sake, on page 13 of this report, I don't know if we can go back to that. The PowerPoint. I'm sorry, on the PowerPoint.
I can do it.
Okay. When we talk about no remaining bank cap, could we have a brief explanation of what that is, how money gets in there, and what would be the detriment of not having a bank cap?
Sure. Bank cap is what occurs when a school district prepares a budget and adopts a budget that goes below maximum spending authority, also known as cap. So if the board was to change the resolution saying we don't want to go to maximum spending authority, hypothetically, we're going to go $500,000 less, in the 22-23 year, we would generate $500,000 of banked cap. Bank cap carries over as a separate schedule in the budget software that you can later add it to your maximum spending authority and utilize it. I believe it has 3 years and then it expires. Previously, the Board of Education, when we had mid-year additional state aid awards and other philosophies that focused on tax, we were able to put a few $100,000 into bank cap, where it was later applied in years where the appropriations were greater than revenues.
Okay, and not having it currently or going into the next year, is there?
Not having it restricts your flexibility in future years that you're going to live within the cap.
Okay. May I have a couple more.
Sure.
On page 15 of the presentation, I'd like, again, clarification, because it looks, and you mentioned it briefly, Mr. Gorski, but it says a percent increase versus last year is 22%. we get from state aid. But it's not 22% of the budget, is it? It's 22% of the poultry state aid we have gotten in the past.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, because I think it's, and it's no one's fault. I think it's human nature to think, oh, we're getting 22% of our budget, where it is not, and the public really needs to, and the board, of course, including me, needs to be aware that this is not 22% of the full budget. It's 22% of the limited number of state aid we've gotten in the past. So we are getting an increase, but it's really not at 100% to begin with. Okay. And then in terms of special education and the numbers we get from special education, we have, when we provide funds for special education, we sometimes get reimbursed after a certain amount. So when we see this aid coming from for special education, is this part of the reimbursement of the monies we've already spent? Or, yeah, could you, or is it new money that we actually are getting to help our special education?
This is strictly categorical special education aid, which is based on our numbers of special education students.
Right.
Low-income students at risk generates this amount of money. It does not tie to anything in the funding formula. This has been the rounding area where the state has pushed the S2 money into this category over the last few years. What you're referring to as a reimbursement of district costs pertains to out-of-district students' tuition and related services for nursing, OT, PT, et cetera, that goes over a threshold every year for that student. That's called extraordinary aid. It is not included in the schedule, as it is based on application every year, and the state could either reduce how much they appropriate through extraordinary aid. Even though you qualify for more, you may get less. It used to be a greater percentage of reimbursement. It shrunk over the years. They took it away, they put it back. So it's not in this type.
So when we do send out our children and we have to have and the funds to do that, if we're not getting reimbursed, where is that money coming from? The budget, though, right?
It's coming from the combined resources in the general fund budget. Taxpayers are paying for
So even
most
though when we get reimbursed, it doesn't go in here, but it would come out if we have extraordinary costs, right?
The extraordinary aid is deposited in the general fund budget to help offset
Oh,
special
it
ed
does,
costs,
okay.
which are in the general fund budget.
Okay.
But it is a fraction of our spending in the special education categories.
Okay.
And just, if you wanted to, if you had a calculator, any inclination, if you wanted to just take a look at the blue categories and go to the 22, 23, add those up, that'll give you a pretty good picture of special education direct spending. When you combine to that some of the purple totals, even if you wanted to take half of that, you'll see that the amount of state aid and reimbursement through extraordinary aid is just a fraction of the district's obligation to the special education community.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Rutsky?
May I?
Yes.
So I figured I'd take this opportunity, since the line item is there, on Schedule A, under tuition, and that line item is Jamesburg, so I just wanted to give the numbers for everybody. So for the 21-22 budget, it's 207, the first line that says tuition under other revenue?
Thank you.
Sure. So the 21-22, it's 275 students is what we do budget for, and for 21-22, it's 15,200 per year. And then going forward, 22-23, we're increasing it to $15,500 per student. That's the $82,000 differential, so just so everybody has the numbers.
Thank you.
And Mr. Rutsky, Jamesburg is also paying transportation
Yes.
costs.
Correct.
Which we're estimating at $175,500.
May we have that 22, 23 number again?
15,500.
Thank you.
Times the same 275
Right.
students. We keep the student number constant, we just change the tuition number when we can.
Why would the transportation number dive down like that by 40%?
Simply because it was over budgeted previously, and we wanted to better have it match. So we looked at the last couple of years and reduced the number.
Thank you.
Anybody have any other questions? No? Okay. Seeing none, I believe we open it up right to the public for comment.
If the board is finished, then it opens up for a public hearing that's required, and then a vote.
Yes.
The intent of that is so that the board hears from the public before you vote.
Is there anybody wishing to come to speak to the budget? Please come to the microphone, state your name and address, and you'll have 4 minutes.
Good evening, Steve Ryback, 23 Riviera Drive. In looking at the budget, I was kind of surprised. For the first time, I noticed there were no district or board goals. I know that certainly can be used to help drive the budget, but it also notifies the public in a little bit more exacting nature about what the board and what the board and what the district want to achieve. A lot of people could look at a budget and not really quite understand what it is we're looking at, what it is you want to achieve as board members, what is it that you want to achieve as a district. So I felt that's something that should be included. The other thing is a suggestion. Maybe we could put in or talk about what's new in this budget that wasn't in the last one. And that's just a suggestion. If you want to bring that up now, that's great, or just take it for the future. Thank you.
Thank you.
Good evening, Betty Sabrito, 2 Barrymore Drive. I just want to thank the administration and the board for putting the special education finally in black and white for the public, because for so many years I've been requesting this, and prior it was not included. And it's interesting to see that, we're not a fully funded district, but it's interesting to see that all of our state budget, except for transportation and security, is all for special education. So I want to thank you for including that. I do have a question. I don't know who to direct to, but I'll direct it to you, Madam President. So only a certain percentage of that was allocated in the budget, and then I guess Mr. Gorski said that the rest of it is kind of laid out in case we need. Can we explain what happens? Because shouldn't that full amount be used towards special education programs? Because Ms. Bierman questioned it, and only a certain percentage of that seems to be allocated for new special education items. So can we clarify that? It doesn't have to be now, just down the line, can we clarify what exactly this funding is being used for? Because I certainly don't want to take anything away from general education. I have twins, one's in gen ed, one's in special ed, but we want to ensure that our special education funding is used for special education. So thank you.
Mr. Gorski, did you want to
Yes.
comment on that?
Yes. The increase in categorical special education aid, plus the anticipated extraordinary aid, which is a reimbursement of our 22-23 costs, is a fraction, as you said, of the total special ed spending. So I'm comfortable in saying that all of that revenue from special education aid and extraordinary aid is applied in the special education categories directly, and then a lot more. That's the district's commitment to those important programs. We wish the state would contribute more. We wish the federal government would contribute more, but this district has always done so on its own.
Okay. Is there anybody else?
Doug Poy, 4 Tamarack. There's a slide 13 that I have a question about. And I don't know if it's just a typo, but it confuses me. The 2 lines that refer to the tax levy cap, they're both references 22-23.
Yes. Madam?
Yes.
That is correct. If you take last year's general fund levy of $110,223,000, it inflates to $112,427,000. That's the 22-23 tax levy cap. So, but I believe I see your point, Mr. Poy. The top line, the $110,223,000, should be 21-22 general fund tax levy. Thank you. We'll fix that.
So the $112, et cetera, that should be 21-22?
The $110 million is the base year, which is 21-22.
I see.
That inflates the 2% to the 112, which is 22-23.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else?
Good evening, Ram Rangnath, 6 Owens Drive. A couple of questions. One is with full-day kindergarten. Was there any discussion as we're putting the budget together to kind of support that? I just feel that, Monroe, the township we should be encouraging that and really trying to make that happen. So I want to know if any discussions happened and why we are not pursuing it. That's one. And second question is, I guess the referendum that's being proposed looks like it's early April. April is the earliest when it could be voted for. So is there anything in the budget to help start to move the needle, make some progress while we wait for a referendum to be passed? So is there anything in the budget for that?
Yeah.
Madam?
I think Mrs. Chanley, did you want to comment on that?
I can comment on the budget question, and then if Mr. Gorski wants to add, and as well as Dr. Lehman wants to talk about the kindergarten. So you're absolutely correct. So as we put together the referendum and we had the pre-referendum services moving forward, a couple of things that you're seeing are the stopgaps. So that's the language that you're going to continue to see, whether it be through BG&T, through finance and so forth, and then continued in our regular Board of Education meetings. So we're working to see what areas that we can increase as far as whether it be special education needs or general education needs. And the stopgaps that Mr. Gorski referenced when he did the presentation within here is moving in that direction. Because I do agree with you, if we are fortunate to pass a referendum, we're still looking at years. So what are we doing in the meanwhile? So we have a couple of more opportunities to look at the buildings as they currently exist, to add them in that can fit when appropriate in the general budget. I hope that answered your question.
Dr. Lehman, did you want to speak about full-day kindergarten?
Sure. In terms of full-day K, we did not include anything related to full-day K in this budget. I did speak to it in the curriculum committee meeting this past month, kind of gave an update. We've really spent the past few years focusing on the ECE, the extended full-day K, or the extended kindergarten program, and aligning that program to our current half-day program. If we were to look towards a full-day kindergarten program, that would be a significant project, not something like we could decide now and get it ready to roll for September. A lot of variables involved, so we would have a bunch of work and a significant project. Not to say it's nothing we wouldn't be interested in doing at some point, but to turn around and do it for next year, it's not the ripple effects in the web of the related services that are impact, the space impact. It's more than just having the classes and having them run an extra couple hours a day. It's a significant, the curriculum writing piece and things. Space is really our kind of issue right now. So something to look forward to, 100%. A project to put into the works, I think, that's a realistic goal. And I think we will see relief with space as we move forward in these projects, whether it's an addition and renovation at Applegarth, the addition at the middle school. The ripple effect district-wide of bringing programs that are in other schools back to their home schools, even though we're doing work in just a few schools in the district, all the schools will be impacted as programs shift to their home schools. Right now, we have students that are on one side of town that their programs are specific in other parts of town, and it impacts transportation, it impacts students being able to interact with the students in their home schools. So like I said, projects in certain schools in this potential referendum we have coming up, you will see impacts around the district, and that alone could then create space potentially for us to kind of look at a full-day K piece. So again, a three-month project, absolutely not. Something to put on the radar and start working towards. I think that's a realistic piece, and as a board, if we want to have a conversation to make it a board goal or make it a priority or something in the next few years to kind of roll that out, that's kind of what I would perceive as a timeline in coordination, in concert with, as we get into this referendum project. That would be kind of, forethought and projecting where we're going with that.
Madam Chair?
Thank you. Yes.
If
Mr.
I may just
Gorski?
add very briefly to that, slide 11 shows some of the stopgap measures that we talked about before. There's also increases in budgeted appropriations for architectural engineering services for 22-23 in anticipation of a referendum, and also other miscellaneous purchase services, which include some other costs for that category. One of the areas that we have a constraint with adding full-day K is facilities, as Dr. Lehman said. There's simply no room currently to put it. When the district offered a second question years ago, it also included trailer costs for that program. So if, we'll have to look at the referendum for that.
Is there anybody else from the public wishing to speak on the budget? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public forum for that, and we will have a roll call vote on the budget.
Okay, resolution moved by Mr. Chiarella, seconded by Ms. Bierman for the 22-23 tentative budget. Ms. Arminio.
Yes, and I'm sorry, quickly point out to the public that this is the first reading.
Preliminary, yes.
Right, and then there is another reading where the public will have the opportunity, after they review it, to bring more information.
April 25th,
In that case, I vote yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Ms. Ratner.
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
And Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Madam President, motion passes unanimously.
Great, thank you very much. I just want to say thank you to the administration, to Mr. Gorski, the entire business office, all of the principals throughout the district who took part in this process through defense rounds and putting together this budget, Dr. Lehman, everybody involved. This is a very big task that begins back in the fall. So thank you very much for all of your efforts in presenting this evening. Our next item on the agenda is our closed session. We have to appoint a temporary board secretary first. We have a
Motion to appoint Karen?
Second. Second.
all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, our closed session resolution. Be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby goes into closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Law, Chapter 231 of Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21, to discuss the following subject: superintendent search process and development of criteria and credentials. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I get a motion to go into closed session?
Second.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Recused? Okay, thank you. We anticipate probably being in closed session for 45 minutes approximately. Maybe sooner, we'll see. Hopefully it goes quickly. Yes. So, thank you. Coming out of closed session, we have a motion that we want to read?
I don't have it to read, but I do
Or
have a motion.
say?
Unless Ms. Bierman, you wrote it down.
No, go ahead. I'll
So,
move
coming out
your
of closed
motion
session,
then.
I'd like to make a motion that the ad hoc committee that was established back in November 2021 for the sole purpose of reviewing and looking at superintendent applications for a permanent superintendent be dissolved as we move forward with what was decided in closed session at this point.
So moved.
Okay. Any discussion? Okay, we'll have a roll call vote.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Ms. Ratner.
Recuse.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Mrs. Arminio.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Fabiano. Mrs. Fabiano.
Yes.
Glasses are fogging.
Thank God no.
How do you vote, ma'am?
Yes.
Thank you, sorry about that. Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you. Okay, then we will go to our next order of business, which is our committee reports. Do we have any committees? Ms. Belko wishing to report.
I'd like to report out on the curriculum committee. It was well, it actually was an hour-long meeting, but it was a short agenda. So we had a very healthy discussion about girls' flag football grant that is, Mr. Dowling presented to us. Grant monies are being appropriated from the New York Jets NFL initiative for exploring flag football in the state of New Jersey. They will be funding $8,000 for the first year and $4,000 for the second year. With that first-year grant comes 25 uniforms, and the uniforms have a shelf life of 5 years plus. They're good, solid Nike uniforms, so we wouldn't have to purchase them moving forward. They did do a survey in the high school. 35-plus young ladies were interested in flag football and interested in possibly being part of it. There's also been some interest from the coaching perspective. There are some coaches, including some football coaches, who would be interested. This would be a spring club for now. And if it gets sanctioned by the NJSIAA, then it would possibly move over to a sport similar to our dance club, which then has now become a dance team, which is a sport. Students can, so if a student athlete plays a fall sport, they could also play this spring sport, with this flag football spring sport. So the committee recommends that we move forward with this club for this year for flag football and see how it goes. Generation from there. Falcon Care activities. There were two recommendations for discussion that were brought to the committee chair myself by committee member Mrs. Ratner, and it had to do with Falcon Care activities after school for elementary school activities. And Dr. Lehman gave a brief presentation about Falcon Care activities after school that are going to kind of coincide with the after-school Falcon Care program, and they are working on bringing a proposal to the curriculum committee first, or is it going to go to probably curriculum and then finance?
Simultaneously.
Yeah,
Adds a little
it'll
piece
probably
of
go in the
finance
same month.
and everything.
She just was not ready for it at this month, so Dr. Lehman just gave us a quick update. And then the curriculum committee, as was talked about earlier this evening, did have an update from Dr. Lehman about kindergarten and where the district stood. And he basically said the same thing at the curriculum committee meeting that he said this evening in response to the question during the budget round for public comment. So no other items were discussed, and next month we have a few things on the agenda, and hopefully we'll have a nice month. Thank you.
Any other committee reports? Mrs. Fabiano?
On Monday, March 7th, the Community Engagement and Communication Committee met. The first item on the agenda was the meeting with Senator Greenstein. We discussed the questions that were submitted from the community, who we would like to once again thank for their input. The following questions were developed, and Mrs. Kirby shared them with the board, and I'm going to just read them out so that the community can hear them also. Question number 1, Monroe is at a disadvantage with regards to equalization aid. Towns like South Brunswick and Hillsborough managed to receive almost $20 million in equalization aid, while Monroe receives none. We know fair share is calculated as the sum of household income and property values. We understand that property values should be in the fair share formula as property taxes are used to fund schools. However, we find use of household income in the formula to be unjustified. Specifically, it puts Monroe, which has the largest senior population, at a significant disadvantage compared to any other town in New Jersey. Monroe has nearly a 50% senior population, where the state average is 20%. Including senior population in the fair share calculation formula artificially inflates the fair share number for Monroe. Can the formula be changed or adjusted to include income of families with children in school so that it is fair and uniform across all the towns in New Jersey? Question number 2, there is an increasing need for after-school childcare, especially for the half-day kindergarten students. Where does the state stand with mandating full-day kindergarten be provided by public schools? If full-day kindergarten is mandated, will the state senator consider providing funding to districts that have financial constraints? What can the state do now to help with subsidizing the cost of childcare programs for the half-day kindergarten students? Question number 3, Monroe has seen an overwhelming increase in building, largely due in part by the affordable housing mandate. This has caused a real issue with being able to house students in our schools, which is resulting in the need to expand our schools to address the student growth. Will the state take action to help the schools district with this by imposing impact fees on builders? This is a real concern in the suburbs, as places like Jersey City and Hoboken offer developers of high-rise condos property tax abatements. This causes the suburbs to take on the brunt of paying for their schools as well as ours without ample state funding. And the last question, will the state withdraw from the Abbott ruling, which would provide relief to towns who see very little in state aid compared to other districts, which leaves them at an educational disadvantage? So those would be put into an email and sent out to the senator. We also discussed the possibility of including other legislators in our meetings, such as Vin Gopal and Teresa Ruiz, so that we could have more people hear us. As of the committee meeting, there were 5 leads with regards to the advertising initiative. We briefly discussed the Smiles for Own Foundation. Mrs. Chanley stated that she would be reaching out to Chief Bianis. We also reiterated that we are not exclusively partnering with this foundation, as the district is open to and already does partner with other organizations to assist in raising awareness. The discussion around the bus tracking app was going to be moved to BG&T, where the Director of Transportation can be included. The committee also discussed the idea of making the Parent Academy more accessible to families across the district as opposed to just one school, and possibly posting a chain of command to the website to help streamline communication. It was a full meeting. And lastly, we discussed the possibility of bagels with the board, which would be an informal conversation with board members, but we would need to look more into the legalities of doing something like that. That's it.
Michelle?
My only suggestion on the questions to the senator, instead of asking the question, will the state do that? I mean, she is our representative. I would recommend that we make it specific to her. Ask her directly what her position is on that, and would she support us in the things that we're asking for? Rather than broad, because it makes it vague, and she really doesn't have to answer that. She'll say, well, I don't know, the state, I don't know what the state's gonna do. I think it should be specific. She is our specific representative,
Okay.
and it should be directed specifically to her, and the answer should come from her in relation to her constituents.
Okay. I can rewrite those to
That's
put
just-
more of a
yeah,
spin.
that's it.
Yeah, absolutely. Does anybody have any other suggestions, questions? I just want to be inclusive of everybody on the board before I send that out.
I mean, if that's acceptable to the chair.
I happen to agree with what Michelle said. I think that that's an excellent idea. Make it very pointed, make the questions, dear Senator Greenstein, these are the issues we're having. What are you, as our representative, going to do for us? Here's what our suggestions are.
Or our
and-
asks.
Or our asks are, and then, put it right on the carpet. Put it right on the carpet.
Okay. Anybody else?
Good pickup.
And it's a suggestion, I'm not sure if it was thought of, but one of those responses had a very visual formula, and I know you've referenced to that in one of the points, but I'm not sure if it's possible to add that, just the formula part as an attachment, to give them a visual of, there is a possibility to adjust the formula, and it is blatantly wrong. I know we put it in a very nice textual manner, but putting the math out there may be a little bit more impactful. So I would suggest from that input that came in from the taxpayer, if we could just take a snapshot of that and put in that in the
Sure.
email. Thank you.
And
Mr. Chiarella?
just to piggyback on what Ms. Bora said, excuse me. Just something about what we send to Trenton as opposed to what we get back, and I think that's a glaring
Yeah.
variance. We send a lot of money to Trenton, and then we get back, a few $1 million from them. And I think that not only the residents, but our elected officials need to see that and help us rectify that.
And sorry, this is just an aside, but I think it was excellent whoever came up with the comparison of the seniors in the community too. So not only are we worried about our children and educating them and getting fair funding for our education, but we are representing our seniors also, and that's a really big one. So that should
I
be,
took all of the questions and tried to
yeah.
mold them
But
together to
that
make sure that I wanted to have, I didn't want to leave any question not put in worked in some way. So we had, as a committee, we had come up with 5 different areas.
But representing the seniors.
Yeah, no,
are
absolutely.
Excellent.
Okay, are you finished with your committee report? Okay, any other committees?
I have
Mr. Chiarella?
We had a Buildings, Grounds, and Transportation meeting on March 7th, and we talked about a lot of things, so I'm going to go over some of those now. We talked about renewing the DMV memorandum of understanding between us and the DMV. This is just a renewal. It's not a new program. It's $150 a year, and it helps us being able to vet drivers, get their abstracts and their records via electronic means instead of having to get the physical abstracts from them. And that is on our agenda. renewal of the donation clothing bin permit at Applegarth School. So this is, Ms. Chanley elaborated on the success of the program, but this program, so the donations from our residents go to the school, and then the proceeds from the clothing drive, for lack of a better term, are then used for the LEADS program, the police department's LEADS program, and for the FLI camp, summer camp. So it's a great program, but anyway, we put that forward too, to move forward with that for the board, if you guys would like that. And then use of buildings program. So this was very interesting, and I think it's huge. We talked about the building use program and how that's been handled in the past, how much money we're deriving from the program, and then things like what we can do to maybe get more money from the program. And when we looked at, or when administration looked at surrounding districts, there's a big disparity between what we charge and what other towns charge for use of their facilities. So what we asked was that the policy committee and the finance committee work together collaboratively to come up with a guide and structure for fees, and then bring that to the full board. There's no reason for that to go back to the Buildings and Grounds Transportation Committee again, but then we could all look at it as a full board once that's finished. We also looked at the MTMS rear parking lot design. So we're recommending that we go forward with Edwards Engineering Group to design the new parking lot area behind the middle school. That, Mr. Gorski explained that the money for that is in the budget already. So we're just asking that the board moves forward with that. This is apart from the referendum, and it'll give us the design and the design creation that we need to go forward and look at things like the cafeteria and that sort of thing. The number 5 was Barclay Brook art classroom conversion to special education room with a toilet. So we talked about that. The administration is going to continue to work with the architect and the engineers to create the construction plans, get the permitting and the things like that for that, and then hopefully we'll be able to work on that starting in the summer of 2022. And then Monroe Commons status update. So as we know, the Monroe Commons is being sold. So administration's been working with the existing landlord, the current landlord, to kind of mediate between them and the new landlord to see if we could extend the lease for pupil personnel services. So that looks like it's going to work out, and we're looking for like a 14-month extension on the lease until we could get through the referendum and then figure out a home for them here somewhere. So that would be a great thing. The last thing that we had was a discussion on the town hall and the potential change for the scope of the referendum. Ms. Chanley went through that. We did have some overall. If you want to speak to that, Ms. Chanley, I think that might do more justice than I can. But
With the demographic report in middle school and high school?
Well, no, the results from the
town hall.
From the town hall,
Sure.
yeah.
Be happy to. So the town hall, we believe, we felt went very well. The questions were, 90%, 95% positive. A lot of people had some concerns regarding timing. It would take such a long time. They had wished we had done it already. There was some comments made. I gave all the originals. I gave them over so that we could have them and we could go through them. A lot of people did have questions regarding moving forward with spacing. We talked a little bit about, one of the gentlemen spoke at public session regarding, are we going to be moving forward still with looking to utilize space? And we said, of course, and now we're waiting. The demographer report was given to DIG Group for them to, I'm going to use the word plug in for lack of a better term, to see if there would be any mobility between some classrooms that were originally designated for the middle school, perhaps would no longer be needed at the middle school, and then could be designated for some changes in the high school to give another 2, 3, 4, 5, whatever the number might be. And I'll be able to report back, I feel, comfortably at the next BG&T meeting. And I think the town hall went well. I think, the point of it was really just to provide visuals, so anybody who wanted to come and physically see and ask questions, and the administration was there. So most of the questions were very positive. Some people had some legitimate questions about traffic. We talked about utilizing, making sure that when we started looking, and this doesn't come till much later on in the pre-referendum services, it comes further down the road, talking about what it means, looking at parking lots, in and out, and so on and so forth.
Right, thank you very
So,
much.
you're
I
welcome.
appreciate that. And also, I think you mentioned that we had 2 failed referenda in the past. And our objective here, and I know we've heard that we don't have a goal. Our goal is to pass a referendum and house our on-house kids as best we can. And this is a plan that we're creating that'll do that while also hopefully being palatable to our voters at large so that we could get something done, because in the past, putting in new schools and putting all that stuff hasn't worked. And so if we want to keep doing the same thing over and over again and getting the same result, then that'll be fine, but our kids will never get housed then. So we're working on a plan that we hope will house our children. The last thing on that was that Ms. Bora brought up a great question and asked the administration to provide historical capital expenditures for Applegarth, which having been on the board for a long time, we've had a lot. We've done a lot, there's been a lot done. And a lot of that has been done within the budget and things like that. So I know that, we're gonna get that information, but, even things like asbestos abatement, things like that, all that stuff happened over the years, but we'll get that list for the next meeting and then we can go through it. That's it. Thank you.
Okay. Mr. Nicotinsky?
You good?
You take it.
So for personnel, we went over the usual vacancy list, exit survey, and administration is recommending a new district advertising facilitator position, which is on the agenda for tonight. And for a good note, we have a positive impact from the substitute raises increases. So there's a bigger influx of people going to work. So that's a plus. That's it.
Okay. Any other committee reports?
I have a question
Sure.
for Mr. Nicotinsky. What was the job?
The advertising facilitator.
Advertising, facilitator.
Facilitator.
Is that a new position?
New position, but it's a stipend.
A new position?
Stipend.
That's a stipend
Yeah.
position. Okay, thank you.
And it's on the agenda for tonight.
Yes, I know, but I just want to be clear. Didn't say whether it was, a single new job or not.
Mr.
I was just going to confirm, the advertising you're talking about, that's the signs around the football field?
Yes.
Okay. And just the football field, not the baseball field?
It'll be expanding over time.
Over time, one step at a time. Gotcha. Okay.
Can I speak to the advertising
Sure,
facilitator?
absolutely.
So the part of the role of the position the person we're bringing on board is to grow the advertising initiative. So phase 1 was to take a look at the one project we have on the inner track, I guess is what signage. But the sky's the limit. So baseball fields, the athletic website has space for advertising. Inside, there's room inside, in the basketball court area to have some signage and things. So really, the sky's the limit, and part of the motivation for this position is to grow the advertising opportunities. So they have one project to start, but the majority of the job is really blow it up and make it big.
And am I right, it's just one size fits all? That's the advertising? For this one. Right? That's it,
For
okay.
this one, right.
Square, $1,000, there's your sign, and I think it was $1,000.
3 by 8.
Right.
$1,000, that's the project right now.
That's it.
Yep, advertise at Monroe.k12.nj.us if you're interested.
I'll just
And,
keep
we'll get back
feeding
to
you, you just keep
Yep.
going.
Okay. Ms. Arminio?
Yes. We had a full meeting also with this policy committee. We had 10 policies to review. I'm going to try to go through them very quickly. If you have an agenda in front of you, it's on page 16 and 17. We'll start with policy 2415.05 is student surveys, analysis, evaluations, examinations, testing, or treatment. This has to do with funding in whole or part by a program of the United States Department of Education. But what this does is, if there is a request for surveys for our students, we are required to have a written consent from parents or emancipated students we have to give them the opportunity to opt out of participation in survey analysis, evaluation, examination, testing, or treatment funded in whole or part by a program of the United States Department of Education, and that concerns one or more of the areas outlined in the policy. So that's an important policy. We know a lot of parents don't want their children to participate in things. I would recommend, again, that the parents take a look at that, but you will be notified, is that correct, Ms. Chanley? If there is such a survey that is requested by the government, the parents will be notified and written consent would have to be given. Okay. The next policy is administration of school surveys. That is, again, a very, it goes along with the one preceding it. And this has to do with our board and our school's responsibilities requiring this previous policy. You want to just speak to that briefly, please?
Certainly. So basically what it does is, it is a guide or it's not written as a regulation, but I'm going to use the word regulation. So it regulates the administration and the Board of Education to confirm that we follow the policy if we ask a survey to be completed that has been given to us through the federal government, that we have in writing the approval of the parent or the emancipated student. So it's basically a check and balance. That particular policy is a check and balance for the policy that Ms. Arminia just explained.
Okay, so, and that is policy 9560, administration of school surveys. And very quickly, it is, the new statute allows school districts to administer an anonymous voluntary survey, assessment, analysis, or evaluation concerning student health only if prior notification has been provided to the parents. And again, it talks about the law. So this outlines what our responsibility is to proceed on those kinds of things. Okay, that's the next one.
And just to clarify, though, these are mandated policies through Strauss-Esme. These are not policies that we've created.
That's
on our
correct. That is correct. Both from the federal government, the United States Department of Education, and then what our responsibility is under that. Those are mandated, that we have these policies. This, essentially, as we discussed it, it ensures that parents and emancipated students are notified and that they give their consent to participate. Okay. The next two I'll do together. They are a revised policy and regulation that goes along with it. That's 24314, and it's prevention and treatment of sports-related concussions and head injuries. I'm not going to go in detail with those because we are very up to date on that. If I may ask Dr. Lehman to talk about that, because we have been in advance of this policy in the past. So please, though.
Yep, we are compliant with that policy. We have a return to play policy and practice in place. We actually had to modify and tweak it as we went through COVID to address other issues, but it's a consistent piece that we've had in place.
Okay, so that policy is a policy and a regulation. The regulation tells us a little more detailed guideline as to how to proceed. The next policy is also mandated. It's 2451. It talks about adult high school. We do not provide that in Monroe, so I'm just going to skip over that. If we had an adult high school, then this policy is mandated for us to follow. The next one is political activities. There's name changes. It is not a mandated policy, however, it is recommended by our legal Strauss-Esme overseers of policy changes and alerts. And they just made some changes for language. And the biggest change is, instead of saying county freeholders, they changed the language Board of County Commissioners. They talk about teaching staff members' duties. And again, the big change is Board of County Commissioners instead of freeholders. So it's really a technical change in the policy, and that's policy 3233. Next would be high school graduation. I think we've covered that pretty well, so we're not going to go over that, but that is policy 5460. There's 15 pages of that for all you graduating seniors and parents of graduating seniors. So it talks about what the criteria is for graduation, and we also talked about that in curriculum in the past. So that goes along with that. That's for graduation and the requirements for graduation. The next one is joint use of facilities. That is also a language change, and we have chosen, this is a small one-page change, and we have chosen the Board of County Commissioners instead of chosen freeholders of this county, and then in accordance with applicable law. So again, it's a technical word change. And bias crimes and bias-related acts. That is 8465 as a mandated policy and a regulation that goes with that. And very quickly, I will tell you what that's about. It talks about uniform state memorandum of agreement between education and law enforcement officials and responding to hate acts and bias-related gender identity or expression and national origin has been added to the protected class of individuals. Bias, intimidation, and additionally, school property has been revised to school grounds. The reporting provisions have been expanded to indicate when a report to local law enforcement by school officials shall be prompt as compared to the circumstances when a report to local enforcement by school officials shall be immediate. Okay, so please take a look at that. Again, that's a mandated policy and regulation. And we had gone over and over again two bylaws, and those bylaws are not changing, so they are staying. Public participation in board meetings has not changed yet, and we're going to leave that for a while. And then there was another discussion on, that was the public participation, and then conduct in board meetings, and we're going to leave that as well, as it stands. Thank you. That concludes my report.
All right, and Ms. Thurman, would you like to give the finance report?
Yes. Finance Committee met on March 9th. The first item discussed was Falcon Care ECE software. The director, Ms. Corallo, did join us at the meeting to outline her proposal of the purchase of Sawyer for Business software. The current Easy Care software has become obsolete, and this is the software they use for registration and payment needs, so it's a necessity, to the area. The cost of this is going to be $2,388 per year, which is, I think, slightly less than the software they were using, and it is item L under the BA report, and the committee does recommend this for approval tonight. Second item we discussed was the GovDeals auction results of the surplus tech equipment. This is item E for board action. The committee is also recommending accepting this. The bids for the iPads, and there was some laptops and computers also included in there, came to $300,405, which was higher than we had estimated it was going to be by a little bit. And, due to the nature of the industry out there right now, it's shortages, et cetera. So certainly the committee recommends accepting those bids. And it's all a done deal and everything. The money is ready to go, we're ready to ship, et cetera. The next item is Comcast amendment. Mr. Feldman joined us at the meeting. He presented and recommended that we renew our Comcast contract. It's a 3-year contract. The pricing is staying the same as it is from the current contract, which is $5,703 per month, and the committee recommends to approve this resolution, which is item C under board action, under the BA report. Next item, we did receive a budget update from Mr. Gorski. It was very thorough in where we were at a week ago. It was still prior to the governor giving the budget address and giving the numbers for the state aid. we were made aware that there had to be some intense negotiation to deal with the health insurance premiums, and that negotiations were very successful there, and kudos to Mr. Gorski and anyone who was involved in handling this. I think we have a broker involved also, but we did get those numbers down to 5% across the board of an increase. And at some point it was how high? They started at 9 or 8.5%. So that negotiation is, you know, helped glue this budget together. There was a lot of money involved in that. The next item we discussed was the review of the attorney fees for January. That number came in at $20,979. This month we were given a breakdown categorized as we had previously requested, and the top spend is the category of Oprah request processing, which came in just under $4,000 of that total for the January bills. And we'll keep reviewing this month by month. Last item is the review of the bill list. Mr. Gorski began by indicating that the board attorney was considering parameters for intra-meeting release of disbursements, which we are in negotiations, and I think it'll come back to the finance committee. We have some verbiage from the attorney for sort of narrowing in on the historic resolution that gives the business office the ability to mail the checks out prior to the approval from the board. So we're kind of taking a look at that, making sure everything is in order, and that we, as a board, have the opportunity to review the checks as much as possible without jeopardizing anything else before they're sent out. So members asked questions about checks on the bill list that have already been released, and Ms. Belko encouraged consideration of greener, more efficient methods to compile the documentation required for payment of bills. The committee does recommend approving the bill list for this month. That's item A, and there'll be follow-up coming out of the next finance committee on the next steps for what the process will be changing with how we look at the bill list and manage the approvals. And that concludes my report.
Anybody have any questions? No? Okay. Seeing none, we will go to item 10 on the agenda. It's the public forum. This is for agenda items only. You have 4 minutes. Come state your name at the podium, your name and address. You'll have 4 minutes to address the board. Is there anybody wishing to address the board? Okay, seeing none, we will close public forum. Oh.
Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. I attended the town hall to discuss the referendum, and in a town of tens of thousands of people, it seemed like less than 60 people showed up. Half of them were district employees. I knew many parents of young children that wanted it to come. I knew lots of seniors who wanted to come, but it was just difficult to be there in person, and I'm disappointed the board did not have remote participation. A few weeks earlier, the board sent out a community-wide survey asking the community what types of communication they prefer, whether they get their Board of Ed news from Facebook or from the district website. And it's odd that the board thought that was important enough to send to the entire community, but when it comes to getting the entire community's feelings about a referendum that's over $100 million, this was discussed in the committee, the town hall. And so I'm disappointed that there wasn't a community-wide survey to ask the community how they feel about the referendum, and I'm disappointed there was no remote participation. Not everybody who showed up filled out one of those forms. So I think the board is investing a lot of money in a plan where they really don't know whether the community supports it. I would urge the board to send out a community survey as soon as possible before we put forth another failed referendum. And I think it's important for the board to note that the previous referendum failed with 20% voter turnout, and it was in the era where there were no universal mail-in ballots. And so I don't think that people can look at the past and say, well, the community defeated 2 referendums to build a school, and that's necessarily always going to happen, because we are living in a different era now with the universal mail-in ballots. So I think the focus of the board should be to expand voter turnout I think it's a mistake to spend over $100 million on a referendum that's a patch job. I think Applegarth School has a potential to be a money pit. As soon as construction starts and people and workers start, digging around the site and opening up the walls, there could be all sorts of other costly problems. And we could end up spending double the projected amount. The architect even admitted that he really couldn't predict all the problems that might be uncovered, especially underground. So it's a risky project, it costs a lot, and I feel like if we're gonna spend that much money, we should build a new school, because even Michelle Arminio admitted that even if all these expansions are done, we're still gonna need a new school. And if a new school costs $84 million now, it's gonna cost millions more in the future. So I think that the board should do the fiscally responsible thing and build a new school, because that would really maximize the value of our tax dollars.
Thank you for your comments.
Thank you very much. Can you hear me okay?
Yes. State your name and address, please, for the record.
Yes, Catherine Hunt, 121 Lowell Lane. And I wanted to comment and ask that we have the public section of comment section earlier. A lot of seniors would like to come, and yet it's so late for most people to stay out. And just request again that traffic study pertaining to the middle school movement of
This is for agenda items only. Do you have anything pertaining to the agenda that you would like to speak to?
I believe that we discussed a visit to Greenstein.
Yes.
We've talked with Senator Greenstein a few times about the school, what we get from the state of New Jersey, and we've had lengthy discussions with her. I hope you get a different answer than we did. But I think a lot of people are interested in that, and we would like to see that apportionment changed and made more fair to us. And then I believe there's an Oprah finding, shows that our acting supervisor lacks qualifications for the position of supervisor, and like to request that the board resume a search for a well-qualified supervisor. And if board members aren't familiar with Oprah findings, would you please make the Oprah request yourself, because it is the individual and collective responsibility of the board members to place an appropriately qualified supervisor. And there are good candidates. So that's one thing that is from the community. We'd like to see the supervisor position placed with somebody that is appropriately qualified. Yes.
Thank you.
All right, you're welcome.
Tim Esso, 2 Allison Court, Monroe. I'm not sure if we have a supervisor. We have a superintendent, I think, who's doing a very fine job in a position she's been put in, and she's for the children, as we all know. And just to remind the audience and even the board, it doesn't take talent to be a critic. You guys are doing this position voluntarily. You were elected officials by the public, and we have to keep reminding ourselves as the public that, there's no compensation here. And if you think you could do a better job, run for election. It's that simple. As far as the Senator Greenstein, this is all well and good. We need to get our senator here. We need to get her in this forum. We need to talk to people across the street, okay, mayor and council, to tell Ms. Greenstein to come here as well. I've been coming to these meetings now for 6, 7, 8 years. I've never seen Ms. Greenstein here. The issue at hand here with builder impact fees, and when I was on the campaign trail, I talked about it daily. Builder impact fees are never going to happen because the pockets are being filled okay, of the politicians in this town, okay, by the same builders. You got Jack Morris, you got Lennar, and you got a handful of other builders as well, okay, that are in the back pockets of there are elected officials here in Monroe. So the only really way to do it is to get her here, put her on the spot, and let her know that this community is really getting shafted, okay, with no builder impact fees. And I have to commend the board, Ms. Fabiano, for what you wrote, okay, Ms. Arminio for standing up too as well, to really take initiative to get our Senator Greenstein here and put her on the spot, okay, let her know in front of the camera, okay, that this is a problem. This is a big problem for our community, no builder impact fees. Everybody gets them but us, okay? But we have to go to the core of the problem, and the core of the problem is directly across the street, okay? And before I walk off this podium, I'm sure it's got to across the street already, okay? The problem at hand is here. We have to hold these people's feet to the fire. If we don't, and you keep electing the same people, don't expect a different result. It's not going to happen. Another thing I need to say and talk about is our finance committee. Once again, I spoke about people who, like to sit up here and they like to bash the board, okay, without fact. They think it's fact, but it's not fact. I've been sitting on the sidelines listening, okay, to some certain stuff or seeing some certain stuff on social media outlets, and they're flat out lies. They're lies. The truth of the matter is, the finance committee we have now, okay, approves bills before they're paid. The last finance committee on the prior board did not. Now, you're talking about a $130 million budget. How do you pay bills without getting them approved? Now, through the chair, and stop my time, is there anybody we can ask in the prior, if you can stop my time, please, Ms. Gorski?
We're going to take questions at the end.
Okay.
We're going to answer questions at the end.
Okay, thank you.
You're
Through the chair, I'd like to know how these bills were paid. We have a $130 million budget. How these bills are paid without being approved. That's illegal, okay? This new board, okay, to all you out there and people listening are going to listen to this new board took the initiative to step up and say, you know what, there's not a bill out of this $130 million budget that shouldn't be paid unless it's approved. And that goes for any business, okay, or any nonprofit organization. It's got to be approved, okay, prior to paying it. So if you're going to sit up here and you're going to throw stones at people who are volunteering their time, elected officials, get your story straight. Otherwise, don't come up here. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak to the agenda? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public forum. Our next item on the agenda is the Assistant Superintendent's Report. Dr. Lehman?
So a special treat, it's short and sweet one. No ice cream. I typically highlight a lot of the student success stories and programs and things, but I think we had a wonderful display of anything that I could highlight tonight in the beginning of the meeting. So I just wanted to thank the parents, congratulate the students, thank the staff, congratulate the staff on all the accomplishments, all of the projects, competitions, any traveling they did, and I wish them success in the future, and we will have more to report. We're going to focus on athletics in a future meeting, so we'll have some of our athletic teams and their accomplishments to recognize as well. And that concludes my report.
Thank you. Our next item on the agenda is our Superintendent's Report. Mrs. Chanley?
Thank you very much. So I echo everything that Dr. Lehman said. It is a very nice opportunity to be able to acknowledge our students in person. We all in different ways have been living through this pandemic, and just having the children come back and be able to shake hands if they chose, wear a mask, not wear a mask, whatever works for you, works for us. It was just a wonderful opportunity. I want to also thank all the administrative staff that always comes out to show the support for the Board of Education as well as for the administration. We think it's very important that we all work together. And I was very elated also. A lot of the jobs that we do and the responsibilities can be mundane, but they are necessary, and it's always nice to get into the buildings. And I had an opportunity to have my liaison with the middle school and high school, which is always a pleasure when I come to the high school. And the topic of conversation I was very happy to hear was bringing back salad. Now, I could definitely let you know that if I had a choice, I would definitely not be eating salad, but it was very nice that their biggest concern, and we did have a follow-up meeting with the Director of Food Service, so the salads are coming back. I know it sounds silly, but I have to be honest with you. There was almost 22 children sitting there, and all they wanted to know was when are the packaged salads coming back. So they're coming back. So on that note, I will also not take up anybody else's time since it's a little bit later than the usual. And once again, it was very exciting this evening to have 194 children recognized in person. Very exciting. At this time, under the 10-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached personnel items A through R.
Moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions, comments? Okay, Mr. Gorski, can we have a roll call, please?
Personnel items A through R. Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes. to
Ms.
all.
Arminio.
Yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Ratner.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. I beg your pardon.
I was just looking, Mr. Moraldo was added, and I just need to recuse on that.
Recuse on Moraldo, so noted. Ms. Bierman voted yes. Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Motion passes.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. For the 9-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached personnel items S through AN.
So moved.
Second. Ms. Fabiano.
Are there any questions for Mrs. Chandler?
Nope.
Mrs. Fabiano? Okay, Mr. Gorski, may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Fabiano.
Yes.
Ms. Ratner.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Personnel items S through AN has passed.
Thank you.
Under a 10-member vote, it is recommended the board approve the attached board action items A through K.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Gorski, may we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Ratner.
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Board action items A through K is passed.
Thank you, Mr. Gorski. And once again, it is recommended the board approve the attached board action items L through Q.
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Gorski, may we have a roll call, please?
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Ratner.
Yes.
Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano.
Yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Board action items L through Q is passed.
Thank you very much, Mrs. Chandler.
Thank you.
The next item on the agenda is our Business Administrator's Report. Mr. Gorski?
Board action items A through H is what we'll be voting on. The D.
Sorry. I made the motion already, sorry.
I'm sorry, I was just noting a change. It's A through H, not A through G, as the DMV has moved to the 10-member vote, as it
Yes.
affects both Jamesburg and Monroe. So, Madam President and members of the Board of Education, it is recommended that board action items A through H be approved by consent roll call.
Motion.
Second.
Are there any questions for Mr. Gorski? Ms. Arminio?
Yes, so I still think it is G, the donation from the New York Jets?
G is the donation for the Jets.
Okay, so it's, okay, so it, all right, so it changed, because I think it said it was $40,000 and now it's $8,000?
It was a
was an error.
correction,
Correct.
yes.
Five different
It
schools.
was in
40,000 is for the state.
Okay,
Right.
thank you.
Ms. Ratner?
Just one quick question. Mr. Gorski, I know the Sunshine Law, I believe it is, requires the advertisements of board meetings. I was looking through the bill list, and I see that the Home News Tribune's ads tend to add up over time. Is that a mandatory newspaper that we have to advertise in, or is that something that can be looked at to see if there can be any? I know it's a minute amount, but everything adds up over time.
Madam?
Yes, Mr.
It is a board-approved advertising newspaper. The board can certainly wish to change that if they so desire.
Are you making a
Okay.
motion to change it?
No,
not now.
Ms. Arminio?
I think we have to do it under the Open Public Meetings Act. That we might not
has to be
in the
advertised.
future, but that's like the public notices, and while a lot of people don't get newspapers, I think it's still important to maintain the open public. I mean, that's, if that's what you're referring to, Mr. Gorski, may I?
Yes.
Is that what that's for?
Yes,
That
ma'am.
cost is for the
Yes.
open public meetings notice?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I mean, I'm a dinosaur, so sometimes I actually do read the newspaper and look at the public notices, and I find them
Okay.
very helpful.
And does that, Mr. Gorski, does that also, when we place I guess it's a print ad, does it also go on their electronic version as well?
I believe it does.
Yeah.
Okay, so that would take care of, because
I
we
would
do
ask
have
that
to
we
under open
maintain
public
that.
meetings, advertise the meetings. And that's set, we set that back at the organization meeting in January.
Okay.
Any other questions? Okay.
I have one. For the
Mr.
bill list, the
Nicotinski?
$15 million, how many of it's already been sent out?
Mr. Gorski?
I don't have an exact number. We discussed this at committee, and there's procedures to provide parameters to restrict categories.
Right, so though it's not quantified what amount was sent out, we were given the bill
Say about
list
half.
marked with the check marks that indicate
So there's about
What
a
was?
half was sent out already.
at least.
Overhead. I have one more
Ms.
question.
Arminio?
Yes, on egovdeals.com, that is one bid for all three items, is that correct?
Madam,
Mr. Gorski?
it's 3 separate bids.
Oh, it is, I thought we were selling everything in one.
It all went through GovDeals, but it was 3 separate auctions.
Okay, so we're 3 separate entities are buying them?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay, because okay. In the past, I thought we had to sell them in one grouping, but that's okay. Thank you.
Mr. Feldman felt that it would attract the best bidding
That's-
to segregate them, because there was a lot of interest in the separate units.
Usually, I think the last time we sold, did we get closer to 500,000 though?
I don't think we ever got 500,000.
We
on
never
a-
did?
an auction,
Okay.
No.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Gorski, can we have a roll call vote, please?
Yes, board action items A through H. This also contains item F, which is the annual comprehensive financial report, which now contains the the GASB 75 post-employment benefits. That's also here. That'll be finalized and then sent to all the state CAFR repositories. Mr. Nicotinski.
For item A, I'm only voting for the ones that are not sent out yet. And I want that noted on the minutes, so.
Ms. Fabiano.
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella.
Yes.
Ms. Ratner.
Yes, except recuse on item A for reimbursement for David Ratner, and I believe I need to recuse on item D.
Recuse on A and D, so noted. A being David Ratner. Ms. Belko.
Yes.
Mr. Rutsky.
Yes.
Ms. Bora.
Yes.
Ms. Arminio.
Yes.
Ms. Bierman.
Yes.
Ms. Skirby.
Yes.
Madam President, motion passes.
Thank you.
Now, the 9-member vote. Madam President and members of the Monroe Township Board of Education, it is recommended board action items H through N, as in Nancy, be approved by consent roll call. So I beg your pardon, it's now I through N.
So moved.
Second.
Okay, are there any questions?
Who seconded?
Ken?
Thank you.
Mr. Chiarella. Any questions? No question? Ms. Arminio?
Yes, on H, the professional appointments with Edwards Engineering Group, we'd spoken about that in Buildings and Grounds. There was no additional change to consider in the middle school, the potential for water runoff, right? There's nothing changed on that. I asked that may have added to this, but I don't see that anything was added, correct? I mean, I'm not sure that anybody agreed that they would do that, but I'm saying it didn't happen.
May I?
Yeah, yeah.
Yes.
Absolutely, Ms. Arminio, you did say that. I think the conversation went a little bit round and round, and the end of the conversation was, we felt that the engineer would have to make the decision, although I totally respected what you were saying about past projects. I believe the end result was, and you can correct me, Mr. Chiarella, if I'm wrong, that the engineer would have to follow code and do what needed to be done to make sure that it was appropriate. Was that the end result, I believe?
Yeah, that the engineer would be, make sure that they were fully compliant with all, not only codes, but to make sure that the storm runoff was.
But there was no specific mention of the potential for considering what might happen, right? I mean, it's fine, I get it. It's fine.
Usually the engineers will probably figure that out.
Sure. Okay.
Any other questions? Mrs. Ratner?
I was just going to ask one quick question regarding item K. This is an event that is during the school day, correct? It's, is it because of the transportation shortages that we are? Okay.
Would you like me to speak on that?
I was going to say that we have to hire out, because I know this is it's very expensive, especially right now for coach services. So, and I know Frogbridge isn't that far, so.
So we always try to work collaboratively with Mr. Gorski and Ms. McDonald, and we, as you all know, especially if you watch any of the committee meetings, we have such
Right.
difficulty even getting our sports teams to and from, that in this particular case, we had no choice, and the cost is completely paid by the student, and we realize that there is a cost to the parent, and I think the difference is somewhere, and I apologize because they're not here, but they asked my permission first before they went forward. I want to say it was about a $10 to $15 increase, and it would be in the last 3 years. 2 to 3 years, because I think they didn't go last year, and they probably didn't go the year before, so in 2 years. And you're absolutely right. We would have liked nothing more than to use our own buses, but we're very happy to say that we have our own buses just to get to and from school.
Yes,
So
definitely.
thank you.
Mrs. Belko?
So I just want to clarify that in the agenda that's printed out here, it's item K, item L, not item K.
Oh, thank you.
Okay. And that is that we, I guess we pay that upfront, and then we get that back when the students pay for the field trip?
That's
Is that- Okay. Okay. Anybody else? Ms. Bora?
I just had a comment on item and the New Jersey Motor Vehicle Commission. There was a discussion on this in the BGT committee, and I just wanted to make a comment that currently this is an expired contract, but based on whatever we discussed, this contract shouldn't expire. We should be renewing it preemptively every year because it's a necessity. So it should get on the agenda before it expired, for future purposes. Thank you.
Madam,
Yes, Mr. Gorski?
the DMV contract will be on the agenda every year. Even though it's a multi-year contract, we still always put it on. I don't know what may have happened if that didn't happen in the past, but that's the intent here, is always put that on.
And will that be, Mr. Gorski, will that be going forward in January, as the payment to DMV says that the payment is due by January 31st, the $150 per year?
Or we're just gonna send it out
That's
without approval.
That's cute. I'm sorry, I didn't hear your question, I was interrupted.
The contract, the existing contract from 2017, as well as this new contract that we have, stipulated in it that there's a yearly fee of $150 due by January 31st of each year. So to Ms. Boer's comment and question that she had emailed earlier, our services were probably suspended because we didn't make the payment in January. So going forward, will this be on the January agenda or prior to January to approve that so that the services don't get suspended going forward?
Indeed, that is correct.
Okay. I just wanted to make, because it wasn't a contract, it was more of a lack of us
Yes.
renewing that.
Yes, and if an urgent need had arisen to hire a driver, we would not have had the ability to, because I did ask if we use an alternate method to do that check, but we do not have an alternate method. So I think it's necessary to put this on the January agenda every year, if it's a yearly fees that we have to pay.
Yes. And one other question I had on that, Mr. Gorski. Who will be signing the contract? It didn't have a name specified to sign for the district. I just wanted to get clarification of who will be signing
Only the business administrator has the authority to sign contracts.
Okay, the previous contract was signed by the former transportation director. That was why I was questioning it. So it will be your signature then on that contract?
That is proper, yes.
Okay, thank you for clarifying. Any other questions? Okay, seeing none, Mr. Gorski, can we have a roll call, please?
Ms. Bora?
Yes.
Ms. Armenio?
I just want to be clear, is it letter I that is the Edward Engineering Group?
H, and that was already voted on, right?
No, I thought,
H is the engineering
H.
group.
It was moved to the
H is the
10-person
engineering
vote.
It was
Okay.
moved to the 10-person vote, yeah.
never mind. Yes.
Mr. Nicotinsky?
Yes.
Ms. Belko?
Yes.
Ms. Fabiano?
Yes.
Ms. Ratner?
Yes.
Mr. Chiarella?
Yes.
Ms. Bierman?
Yes.
Ms. Skirby?
Yes,
Board action items I through N has passed. That concludes my report. Thank you.
thank you. Okay, the next item on the agenda is the board president's report. We had a packed agenda tonight. It's rather late, so I will keep my comments very short. I'll let the agenda stand for my report and move on. Again, I just want to say again how wonderful the presentations were, the performances this morning. This evening prior to the meeting out in our rotunda area, as well as our chorus singing, and then again, a congratulations to all of our students for their achievements that we celebrated here tonight. And with that, we'll move to our next item, other board business. So, Mr. Chiarella.
Yeah, I want to just reiterate what you just said. I want to thank not only the students and the parents, but the teachers and the administration. What we saw tonight was wonderful. Those are the things that we should celebrate. You know, when it comes down to it, this is why we're here. We're not here for donations from developers or appointments or barbecues with bobbleheads. We're here for the kids. And that's what we have to focus on. That's it.
Thank you. Ms. Fabiano?
I know I spoke about this at the last meeting, but I just wanted to say that thank all of the principals who welcomed some of us into their schools back in February. We had the opportunity to tour all of the schools. It was a very, very busy day, jam-packed, and my legs were going to fall off by the end, but it was great to see the inside of all of the schools and, you know, really get a sense for what the schools, what the principals felt that their schools needed. So I would just like to thank all the principals.
Ms. Bora?
She raised her hand first.
It's okay, it's okay. I talk enough, you can go.
Then I'll piggyback on what Ms. Fabiano said. I had an observation from the school tours that we did that I wanted to share with the general public, because we always talk about 1,500 unhoused students that we have in our district. The general theme that day, in every school that we walked in, every administrator was so creative and out of the box in the way they used the spaces in the building. You wouldn't feel that they had used it that way, but just because they were pointing it out to us, I felt like the effort was so evident that they were making at ground level in every single school to make sure that every inch of space is used in a way that the kids get every opportunity, and things that are on cart don't necessarily have to be on the cart if there is an inch of space left in the school. So I wanted to give a shout out to all the administrators across the district and the 8 schools that we visited that day. It was a wonderful experience. I'm very grateful for that. And the second observation I want to make about the presentation tonight, I saw a lot of children that walked out a couple times for multiple certificates, and that speaks to not just the talent this district had, but for the opportunities the school is providing and making it, through the scheduling challenges, making it possible for children to do multiple extracurricular activities. So hats off to the educators in the district. Thank you.
Thank you. Ms. Ratner?
So for those of you who don't know, it's actually Music in Our Schools month, in the month of March. And I actually lived this for a decade. I used to be on that other side, coming to meetings and presenting and having my heart palpitating in front of the Board of Ed, and now I'm like on this side watching it. So it's very interesting. But I also went to a number of these events where our students are all being honored for. And when I looked at the number of students, I think it was for the high school region choir, my jaw dropped, because we probably make up about 40% of the region, which is of 7 counties in the state. So it's really a phenomenal thing. And the percussion ensembles, as Mr. Snyder had mentioned, same thing. So it's just really nice to see that. And then just the other thing I wanted to mention, and I hope she doesn't mind my saying it, Mrs. Fabian and I actually got to attend our Governance One live training this past weekend, which was a marathon. It was 3 hours on Friday and 6 hours on Saturday, but it was definitely eye-opening, and it was great to network with other board members from other districts and hear ideas of things going on. Like one thing I found really interesting, I believe it was one of our facilitators has been a president of the board for several years, and for each of his committees, they actually have 3 community members on each committee, which I found to be really interesting and not something that I'm saying we should switch to do right now. Just, to see how every district handles things differently was really interesting to see. And there was definitely a lot learned over the weekend.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? Mrs. Bierman.
Only thing I wanted to mention was it was great to have that full packed room we had when we first got here. The performances were great. The presentation to reward the children and to give them recognition was great. I wish we could have held the room for the budget presentation. It's disappointing to me that everybody just kind of flees after that. I hope they're going to come back and go to the video and look at it there and take some time to access the website and look at the materials and understand that portion of how this district operates also. Thank you.
Thank you. Anybody else? Mr. Rutsky.
If I could just, 2 personal things. We acknowledged a few retirements tonight, and I just wanted to give a personal shout out to Mr. DeFilippis, who is the sole reason why my daughter's a high school history teacher. She leans on him, she refers to him, he's part of our dinner conversation regularly. So he doesn't know that until now, but, so I just wanted to wish him well in retirement, and absolutely, he's been great. And having the chorus here, and having Mrs. Siegel do such a wonderful job with that program, to see it, up close and personal, just a real treat to start the day, start the meeting, and it was just greatly appreciated. Thank you.
Thank you. Mrs. Belko.
If you enjoyed the music tonight, I invite you all to come tomorrow night to the coffee house. There will be a certain member of a certain family who will be serving coffee. So if you want to get some coffee, she will be there. And I will be here. The coffee houses are great. And if you want to see some more really good music and you want to get out of the house, come on out and see the chorus and the singers and the acts again, because they're really good.
Great, thank you. Anybody else? No, Mrs. Chandler, did you want to?
Yes, I wanted to apologize. We were trying to be so expedient due to the concept of time that we do have a total of 4 retirements. So we have a bus driver, Ms. Dolores Arado, a language arts teacher from the high school, Ms. Deborah Sundstrom, Mr. DeFilippis from, I know he's a social studies teacher at the high school, and Miss Elaine Weber, who is also a social studies teacher at the high school, so I do want to wish them well on the new endeavor. They're very lucky. I envy all 4 of them. And everybody already said wonderful thank you. Tonight was really a team effort, from the administration to the supervisors that helped orchestrate it, to the band and the chorus directors that came out so that we can enjoy some musical interlude. So I did want to say thank you. I didn't want to be remiss to leave anybody out, but thank you very much.
Thank you. Anybody else? Okay, seeing none, we will go to our next item, which is the public forum. Anybody wishing to address the board, please come forward, state your name and address. You have 4 minutes. Good evening.
Good evening. Ryan Turcott, 10 Brandy Place. I want to revisit 2 topics that were discussed at the last meeting. Last time, Mrs. Chanley, she was lamenting the fact that she had to continuously defend herself against claims and accusations that were being made by other people. This was something that Ms. Skirby also commented on. I would invite you to ask yourself why that continues to happen, okay? This is not accidental. And the second topic is related to that. I'll give you an example of the issue at hand. At the last meeting, someone brought up the issue of booster club funds that there was a problem with. Now, let me recap the events. The athletics director has the ability to authorize the use on Saturdays for the facility that was used for that event. The administration was aware of this, and paperwork was filled out, not by Booster Club. That's an important point. Half of the way through the event, there was apparently a problem. Mrs. Chanley had raised an issue about gambling licenses and the way that the money was being raised. Apparently this wasn't known. This was most definitely known. This was not a surprise. They produced the gambling license upon her request within a few minutes, as I understand it. So this really wasn't an issue. The event proceeded to take place, and she allowed it to continue for the remainder of the day. However, after this incident happened, she instructed a public official, meaning a school employee, to collect the money instead of the Booster Club members collecting the money, as they were doing at the door. At the end of the day, and at the conclusion of the event, all the money was taken, okay? It was taken not by Booster Club, but by the school employee, right? And this money, as she said at the last meeting, was made money to be into the public fund, the general fund, I think as she phrased it. This money is the property not of the school. This should not be in the general fund, okay? She also said that this was not the fault of the school, and she kind of put it back on Booster Club. I find this preposterous, considering that the paperwork which she had a problem with was not filled out by anybody by Booster Club, okay? Wednesday before the event, an email went out and made it very clear who was collecting money, what the event was, and what it was doing. Everybody knew that they were giving money to Booster Club, okay? This was not a surprise. She had Thursday and she had Friday to raise an issue. She waited till halfway through the event on Saturday to do so, okay? A normal and reasonable person would let this go if they really had an issue. If the event was already taking place, they would let this go, right? And then maybe take action afterwards to see that it didn't happen again. But she didn't do that. She allowed it to continue and then take the money. She instructed her employee to take the money, okay? This peculiar action makes me question the motivation behind this because I can find no reason to do this. Everyone knew that they were giving money to Booster Club. This is property of Booster Club. And to be clear, Mrs. Chanley is not a member of Booster Club. She is not secretary or treasurer, president or anything, nor was she authorized by anyone on behalf of Booster Club to operate in any capacity. It is a 501c3 charity. It is a separate entity, completely separate legal entity of which she has no control over, okay? If you go to a casino and you're counting cards, they ask you to leave, but you take your chips, you cash them out. If you're operating a food truck or something, you don't have a license, and the police come, they might fine you, but they don't take your money, they don't take your property, they tell you to leave, okay? Apparently that doesn't happen when it's her. These actions are quite simply outrageous. I'd ask you to think to yourself what you might label someone who takes property that doesn't belong to them. Even if I'm wrong in everything that I just stated, okay? And let's say that she was completely within her rights to do everything that she did, okay?
Your time is up, sir. Thank you for your comments.
My time was not up.
Your time is up.
I was watching it.
It just beeped. It ran down to 0. And I would just like to say, in our district, we have protocols, procedures, and policies, and things have to be followed by procedures. We do not make alternate decisions. We do not make arbitrary decisions. There was no building use filled out. The Booster Club did not have any approval to be in the building raising any money. They have taken they were able to keep the proceeds that they raised through their raffles and through the food sales for the day. No event that takes place in our school district where ticket sales are purchased at the door, such as football events and basketball games, has ever been given to any outside organization. That has always gone through the general fund, and that is the decision that administration made. Thank you. Anybody else from the public wishing to speak?
Yes, thank you. Catherine Hunt, and I'm at 121 Lowell Lane. Wanted to first of all say, yes, we need a new school. We don't need to try and remake the old one. I just, having been around a family for many years that has done a lot of remodeling and a lot of construction, I know that the school is too old, and it would end up costing us much more money to try and remodel that old school. We need a new school. And we can pass that referendum that we need for a new school. We need to do it. And I think, as the gentleman talked about the Booster Club issue, it was very sad to hear about that. And I wanted to say that this is not how you treat members of the community that are trying to do something for the kids. That this was really despicable. And I could hardly believe it, that our superintendent would do that. It's just so sad. Leadership in your community should be nurturing to the people who are trying to do something for the kids. I just say, think of your leadership. Think of what you're doing to the community and to the children. Try to put that first. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Good evening. My name is Tracy Hart. I reside at 110 Avenue K East, Monroe Township. I have a couple of concerns. As a parent and a resident of this township, I have several concerns regarding the current acting superintendent's credentials and qualifications. My questions are not necessarily about the status of her academic career, but the statistics around the truthfulness of that situation and her explanation. There's some information that has come to my attention that contradicts what she has explained in the last board meeting in her explanation. The board is charged with serving the best interests of the students of this district, and the information is discouraging and very concerning if that is true about the status of that situation that she's engaged with regard to her doctorate degree and its credentials and that whole situation. I think as a board, these are things that you should look into. I sit here sometimes and listen to the meetings, whether I'm here in person or at home, and some things you're willing to put a microscope on top of and examine it to its end, kill it to death. But this seems to be something that's kind of like brushed aside, overlooked, and not given the attention that I think is warranted. And the only thing that I have to ask is, just tell us the truth. What is the status? Where it is? What is it? If you're using that to seek permanency in your position, let us all know. I think you should select the best qualified applicant, and these are questions that the community wants to know. If you have it, you have it. If you don't, what is the status of it? Just come clean and tell the full story. With regard to the Booster Club, I was disturbed to hear about that situation. I don't know what happened on all of the detail, but it feels punitive. It feels like somebody, somehow, someone is being punished for some error or whatever. But ultimately, if the funds are going to be utilized for scholarships, for students to continue in their education, you should focus on looking at the problem of not filling out paperwork correctly and having a student have the opportunity to continue with their education. And those are my concerns, and I appreciate if this board would address them and look into them. Thank you.
Thank you. Is there anyone else wishing to speak?
At the last board meeting, I also raised concerns about the fact that Ms. Shanley had...
Excuse me, please state your name and address
sorry.
for the record.
Sarah Aziz, 3 Lancelot Drive. At the last board meeting, I also raised concerns about the fact that Ms. Shanley had misrepresented herself as a doctor in the yearbook for 5 years. Ms. Shanley did not deny this misrepresentation. Instead, she blamed Rowan University for not awarding her with a doctorate and accused Rowan of libel and a lack of ethics. That makes no sense. Ms. Shanley claimed that she abandoned her doctoral program in Florida because she moved to New Jersey. According to her resume, she was still enrolled in the Florida program 3 years after she moved to New Jersey for a total of 5 years. In 2008, she enrolled in the Rowan doctoral program with Dr. Alvik and Dr. Roselle, but they graduated in 2011, the year that the middle school opened, and yet Ms. Shanley remained in this program for another 10 years. Publicly available records show that Ms. Shanley's name appears on Rowan's commencement programs for the springs of 2013, 2014, 2015, 2018, 2019, and 2021, and yet in each of these years, she fails to graduate. At the last meeting, she claimed that Rowan did not, quote-unquote, approve of her dissertation topic. If that's the case, why did she fail to resolve this issue over the past 14 years, and how much money has Monroe already reimbursed her for her doctoral education? I attempted to find out this information in an Oprah request, but my request was denied. Last month, Ms. Shanley's office seized control over the Oprah process. Previously, it was controlled by our business office. Ms. Shanley's current resume lists an anticipated graduation date of December 2021, but as of February 2022, Ms. Shanley has still not graduated. She claimed that she was working towards a doctorate, but when I checked with Rowan University, they informed me that she has not been enrolled in their program at all in 2022. In 2018, Ms. Shanley enrolled in a doctoral program at Liberty University, which was founded by Jerry Falwell, while she was still enrolled at Rowan, but failed to get a doctorate at Liberty University too. Over the past 20 years, Ms. Shanley has attempted to get a doctorate from 3 different universities and failed every time. In other places, people get disciplined or fired for this level of dishonesty, but here in Monroe, they get promoted and rewarded with a lucrative contract with no end date. How can we tell our children it's long to lie on their college applications when we allow this to happen? Ms. Shanley's resume also shows that she is not certificated to teach K-12 students in the state of New Jersey. She cannot effectively oversee our K-12 teachers in Monroe because she lacks their New Jersey teaching credentials. Furthermore, again, Ms. Shanley has a conflict of interest because her husband is part of the teachers union when as acting superintendent, she's head of the negotiating unit. For many reasons, she was a poor choice for acting superintendent. Given that so much dishonesty has already been uncovered at this point, it should not be a question of whether she should be allowed to continue in this position, but whether she should be allowed to continue in her employment in any capacity. The tone of every organization is set at the top, and it's important to have a leader whose record reflects academic achievement, professional accomplishment, and integrity. And the previous speaker also had concerns about her honesty, and when Ms. Shanley was confronted, she left the room. She's not in the room, and we also need leaders that have the courage to accept criticism, that can acknowledge their mistakes, and they can apologize for their mistakes and amend their conduct. We don't expect our district employees to be perfect. Everybody makes mistakes. But it's important to acknowledge them, apologize, and make amends. And I hope that we find a leader that has that kind of courage, integrity, and record of accomplishment.
Are you done?
Yes.
Thank you for your comments. What I would like to say is you've continuously come up to this microphone and I'm sorry, you're out of order. Please sit down. You've continued to come up here and disparage and harass our acting superintendent with information that is false. You make wild claims day in and day out, hourly, on your Facebook page that accuses Mrs. Shanley of being untruthful, which is not accurate. You are not accurate with any of your facts that you've presented here. She has not misrepresented herself. You should really cease and desist from calling Rowan University and going on some wild witch hunt for things you know nothing about. It is unacceptable to sit here month in and month out and conduct yourself in that way and disparage somebody who has showed us amazing leadership during this time with amazing qualifications.
And accept money from developers.
Exactly.
Peter Tufano, 10 Catherine Street. How is everyone tonight? So here we have another late night organized hit piece on our superintendent. It's really disgusting. You should be ashamed of yourself. Now, I'd like to say something about the event that you had the other night, the town hall on the referendum. I thought it was a great event. I thought it was timed perfectly because I have 3 kids at home. I have run a business, and I was able to get there and cook dinner before. So anybody who wanted to attend that could have attended it. There's no excuse. Just like this place is empty most of the time because everybody's too busy, but they have time on Facebook. Tomorrow I'll read on Facebook that Miss Chanley mugged some Girl Scouts for her cookies outside the ShopRite tomorrow. So I'd like to commend the board. I was on the board for 3 years. We worked really, really hard on this new referendum. A lot of us disagreed on certain things, but everybody's come to an agreement that a new school is not going to be voted on like it was in the last time it went up, when we had town halls for hours and hours and hours, late night, when we all put in the work, our own personal time that we didn't get paid for because we're concerned about the students and the taxpayers. This time, the referendum, you guys decided that a renovation would probably be better financially for the township, and I commend you for sticking behind it and trying to get it done. There are certain people in this town that no matter which direction you went in, would have had a problem with it because they have personal vendettas. They attack the board's businesses, they attack the board's personal finances, they attack people's personalities, and they are disgusting in this community, the people who do that. Again, I commend you for your hard work, and stay the course. Don't listen to the hateful people who can't get elected to certain positions they want.
Amen to that.
Thank you, Mr. Tufano. Mr. Gagliardi, did you want to make some comments?
Yeah, thank you, Madam President. Just in terms of the references
Can you get closer to the mic so we can all hear you?
Thank you. Yeah, just in terms of the references, I mean, obviously, we have neither the time nor the interest in my correcting every legal statement that I know to be false. Two, before I get to the main point in terms of the issues of Ms. Shanley's certification, not true that she is head of the negotiating unit, entirely false. I know this because I've been consulted on the role that she can and cannot play. But there were several comments made about what went on with regard to the Booster Club and the event where the money was collected. And I just want the members of the board and the members of the public to understand the significance of what went on there. The fact that the so-called paperwork wasn't filled out, it's more significant than that, right? So the money that is typically collected at one of your events is public money. And you folks are responsible for how it's spent because you're elected fiduciaries with that legal responsibility. So that when requests aren't properly made and approved, you have a situation which is essentially the diversion of what would otherwise be public money. So regardless of how noble the cause, there's nothing spiteful or disrespectful about it. If that isn't handled properly, then you're simply facilitating a diversion of public money. It's a pretty serious incident. So it's not hyper-technical, it's not spiteful, it's not mere paperwork. And I want folks to understand that there was nothing beyond the decision made. A couple of questions about leadership. Yeah, it's not necessarily popular because the cause was just and sympathetic, but it would also be wrong. So I wanted the board and the public to understand what was done and why, which is simply to protect what would otherwise be the diversion of public monies. It's not something the superintendent would participate in. It's not something I'm sure the board would want, regardless of how just the cause is. It's the way it needs to be handled. Thank you, Madam President.
Thank you. All right, is there anyone else who has not spoken that would like to speak at public forum? Yes, good evening.
Hi, good evening. Roshni Shah, 10 Fieldview Drive. I'm not going to take up too much time, but I did want to just thank the board for your service. I think there's a lot of negativity, but I think we have to look at the positives, and I think you saw that at the beginning of this meeting. I think that's what we need to focus on. I think the other thing to note is that you guys are on a good course. You have a good plan for a referendum. You're in the middle of a search for an for a permanent superintendent. I think you guys are doing the right thing, and I think you're doing a great job. And I just want that to be acknowledged because I don't think this should be a bashing session. So just wanted to take a minute to thank you guys and say that I do think you're doing a great job. So let's remember what we're here for. Let's remember the students. Let's remember the awesome celebration at the beginning of this meeting, and let's take that away from this. So, thanks.
Thank you. Is there anybody else who has not spoken yet at public forum? You can only come up one time each public forum. Thank you. Is there anybody else wishing to speak? Okay, seeing none, we will close the public forum. And our next item on the agenda is our closed session. So we need to appoint a temporary board secretary?
I second that.
Huh?
I make a motion that Karen be the board secretary during our closed session.
All in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, then be it resolved that the Board of Education of the Township of Monroe hereby moves into the closed session in accordance with the Sunshine Laws, Chapter 231 of Public Laws of 1975, NJSA 10:4-6 through 10:4-21 to discuss the following subjects: harassment, intimidation, and bullying. Following closed session, action may be taken. The discussion conducted in closed session can be disclosed to the public at such time as the need for confidentiality no longer exists. Can I get a motion?
Motion.
Second. Second. All in favor? Aye. Aye. Thank you. Closed session will probably be less than a half an hour. Good evening. We are back from closed session. Make a motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Oh, wait,
Motion.
Second.
Second.
Public portion after, I know there's no one here, but we have a public portion after a closed session.
Yeah, but
We're not doing any,
Seeing-
right, seeing no one. Yeah,
Right.
it's on the agenda.
well, it's on the agenda if there's action. Right, okay.
Okay,
Well,
whatever.
there's no one here for public. Anybody wishing to come and speak? Anyone? No? Seeing none? Seeing none, we will close public portion. We will motion to adjourn the meeting.
Motion.
Motion.
Okay, the
Second.
next Board of Education meeting will be on April 25th, 2022. Thank you and have a good night.
Okay.